This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first, as you know, as advertised already. The first star exclusive is with Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum, Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe constituency and former Minister for Education. He is NPP flag bearer, candidate, one of the 5. Well, in his term, a lot was said that he had put Ghana and given Ghana a certain global outlook with his management. He had come from an experience in the field, building one of the best education systems in the USA. How does he hope to translate that into building the democracy that we all want, the Ghana that we all want? How are the people, the delegates, who determine and give him the opportunity to be presented to Ghanaians, how are they warming up to him? Seeing that he's not in the top in the surveys that have come out so far, how does that matter or worry him? So, get ready for that. But after him, we'll be looking at the matters of Ofori-Attah in ICE, and now we are told he's facing a court on the 20th, and then Sedina Tamaklo Atieno, former Maslok boss, who was also put on trial and convicted 10 years, and who escaped from the jurisdiction, has also been picked up by U.S. Marshals. She's also supposed to be facing a court in the U.S. on the 21st, a day after Ofori-Attah. So 2 fugitives from justice, from Ghana, both arrested in America and in detention in America. Are there any hopes that they are homebound? We'll look at that. And, of course, there is a very controversial matter of the LGBT tainted teacher's manual. The NACA says they have withdrawn that controversial LGBT definition of gender. Is that enough? Should that end the matter? No one is taking any sanctions? We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum, good morning. Thank you very much for making time to join us on Newsfile.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Now, how has the year started for you? Has it started on a note you are smiling like many people about the economy? There's reduction in fuel prices. We were just told yesterday we're under an inflation. At the time you left government at 24, it has been brought to 5%. The longest, the highest or the lowest. Since they say the CPI in 2021. We have the gold board and the BOG reserve program that has introduced 10 billion US dollars into our economy. Things are stable. You're also enjoying that, are you not?
Thank you so much. And like any Ghanaian, I'm happy that the government is doing something good for our nation, bringing some stability. But when I move beyond that confines and I begin to look at the future of Ghana and where we can go, then we'll have a different discussion. But of course, if the government comes in and is able to do certain things, it's not about politics. It's about looking at the reality and saying, I like 5% inflation. It's a good thing. Brings stability. I like the fact that the CD is stable. It's a good thing. But when I put on my hat at somebody who is looking at how do I eradicate poverty from the face of this country? How do I build a robust economy? How do I create an export-driven economy that will generate the revenue, the money, to stabilize the currency without artificial injection The situation we find ourselves in is just like a medical doctor who is dealing with a patient in crisis. The patients come in, they are not stable. Medical doctor comes in, able to stabilize the patient. That is where the real work then begins. After the patient is stabilized, then you have to begin to find the cause of the crisis. And once you find the cause of the crisis and you deal with the cause, then the patient is home and free, because that crisis will not occur again. Right. So we are in a good place with stability, but you have to look beyond that stability to say, if there's no oxygen on the patient, what will happen? If I take off the oxygen, if I take off the 10 billion intervention, what will happen? And once you're able to say that I'll have to do ABC, and if I'm able to do ABC, then I can take off the oxygen and the patient.
The question of sustainability. Many have asked the question if this is organic, or as you said, this is, trying to, as it were, manage a situation in an artificial fashion. Do you see the prospect, signs that with all the talk about the 24-hour economy and all the things that are supposed to be done by this government, we are in good place and that this will be sustained?
You see, you assess this if you are a student of development economics. You are assessing based on what other countries have done. If I look at Singapore and I look at South Korea, we are nowhere close to the sustainability that will ensure transformation of our nation. I have a document by National Development Planning Commission. Talks about Ghana at 100, 2057. Following the Indian example of India saying by 2047 will be developed. And their president was in Parliament a few months back, addressing the Parliament of Ghana. He made a profound statement that was lost on a number of people. He said, by 2047, India will be a developed nation. That statement is reminding us of what the National Development Commission is saying, that by 2057, Ghana should be a developed nation. If that is the angle you are taking it from, and if you are truly care about the transformation of this nation, then you're going to look at all the gaps in various sectors and ask yourself, how can we meet that target of $50,000 GDP in 2057 as proposed by the National Development Planning Commission? We are about 3,000 now, after 60-something years. You have 31 years to go, and you want to be developed. You want to be $50,000 per capita. If that is your sense of urgency, you look at everything that is going on through a different prism, because you know that even if you enjoy all this stability for the next 10 years, but you do nothing about getting a growth rate of 9 to 10% for 20 consistent years to transform your economy, if that is not your focus, if you are not looking at the gaps in your education system and fixing the gap so that you can go the way of Deng Xiaoping of China, you can go the way of Nguyen of Vietnam, you can go the way of Shokozi. If you are not looking at that, then everything is nice. But if you are looking at that and say, we need a GDP of 50,000 per capita, and we are 3,000, the sense of urgency is different. You celebrate your successes now, but you are not happy. Because you know, about 45% of Ghanaians are literally in poverty. 20% of them below poverty line. Another 25%, in case they get sick, then they are poor. So when you are looking at a student of development economics, a politician who are thinking about transformation, and you begin to look at that, you say to yourself, this is good, I'll celebrate, but we are nowhere close to transformation.
So if you thought that Dr. Yaoseye Adichum is just a technocratic education and might not be able to have a firm handle of your economy, please, let's begin to take our notes well and perhaps rewrite them. Now, Kwaku Kwarteng in Parliament has said before he wrote a statement, criticizing your government that the economy was being run like a Ponzi scheme, and we know how Ponzi schemes are. Back to the question I'm asking, is that the kind of economic management you are seeing, or you are seeing efforts, you are seeing plans that will sustain this economy in the prism or the paradigm that you just outlined?
You see, if you are looking at stabilizing things, stabilizing the patient, we are good. But what I say, I don't understand why we cannot have a formula that makes us an upper middle income. And if you want that us to become upper middle income, you have to quickly look at all sectors of the economy and look at the gaps. You have to begin to look at how do I create a middle class Ghana. If a teacher cannot buy a car, cannot afford a car, you don't have an economy that is being transformed. So this is not a political thing. It has been there for long. We really have to get a handle on how we use GeoAI, for example, to map the country to see where the mineral deposits are, so you don't come and get a prospecting license to go and find it. You come in, we already know where it is, and AI will allow us to do that. Right. So we know the value of resources that we have, and if we were to mine it, if we were to do more deep shaft mining, what resources will come? What I'm saying is this: we are nowhere close to transformation of our nation.
Nonetheless, is John Mahama doing well?
Oh yes, I mean, based on benchmarks we have set for ourselves over the years, if you're doing that comparison, yes. But what I'm saying is this: if we want to do the 50,000 per capita, if we want to be like Singapore, right, if we want to do India, right, there's a lot to
now,
be done.
At the level at which you seem to see, a general sentiments of satisfaction with the economic management so far, however it's been done, organic or not, whatever the debate is, generally people are excited. Do you see that the NPP has any credible prospects in 2028?
I'll tell you this.
You want to lead it into government?
If the argument is managing what exists, it's a different ballgame. If the argument is transforming this nation so that we can create jobs, we can set up IT hubs, we can go the way of India, we can begin to measure the gross national knowledge product, not just the gross national product, gross domestic knowledge product developed by Professor Umberto. That is how India is looking at their growth. They invest in education and they measure the impact of their investment for transformation. Indians have set up IT hubs. They have people working in India for major companies around the world. Through their IITs, Indians are controlling the world IT system and infrastructure. Graduates are getting jobs. Students who don't get accepted into IITs in India are the ones who accept to go to MIT. If you raise the bar up to that point, we have a lot of work to do.
And get the sense that you are modeling your vision along the Asian countries, because so far that appears to be the references you are making.
Recently, Rwanda is doing something, and they want to call themselves the Singapore of Africa. They are doing something. The economic growth rate.
The Singapore economy is knowledge-based. The Indian economy is also largely knowledge-based, not raw material.
They transitioned. India economy was not this. When they created the knowledge economy plan, then they began transforming. If you don't go down right, you heard of STEM.
But the comparison with India may not exactly work because of the population, the sheer size of that country.
That is where, if you leverage the Africa system that we've created, then you are in Ghana, but you have the whole African market to yourself. So you can begin to do what India has done, even though you have a smaller country. So the basic line, the bottom line is this: you can create this knowledge economy. And if you don't, I don't know how. we are going to change Ghana. I don't know how. This raw material exports, we are not doing value addition. We are exporting the gold, but we don't have a gold street in Accra. In East Legon, there should be a gold street where jewelry, goldsmithery is taking place, and tourism. Tourists are going there to buy gold. We are adding value to our gold. We'll get about twice the value of what we are getting from gold and other raw materials. Then how do you boost that without the knowledge economy?
Tell us, what's this unique vision of yours that sets you apart from the 4 other contenders for the MPP flag bearer, race?
You see, you can hear of many things in terms of how countries get transformed, but in this 21st century, no country has transformed without a robust education system that builds a knowledge economy that then brings about innovation. A nation where your best minds are in research and innovation and not medical science. The best students you have in the nation goes into research and innovation. You look at the United States of America and begin to ask yourself, was it America this way all this time? No. When the Sputnik was launched by the Russians, Americans panicked. They knew that they were in trouble. But where did they turn to? They turned to education. Malan, who was a leader who wrote the Malan Report, told Americans to identify their best minds, they are gifted and talented, and educate them in special schools. They gave a boost to gifted and talented education. Research shows that 6 to 10% of any population are born with special gifts, high IQs, special talents. They can sing, they can dance without being taught much. Americans, through Malan, gave a boost to gifted and talented education. They set up the NASA. In high schools, people began to study aviation and aerospace. They began to do many, many courses that would set them apart and allow them to compete with the Russians. They did not start to build similar things like a Sputnik. No, they decided that we have to turn to our human resource. We know we have gifted and talented children, and therefore, we're going to give them quality education. Put them in classrooms where they are challenged to innovate. You go to American universities and there are honors programs for the best and the brightest. They are doing undergraduate, but they are doing research as if they are doing master's degree. They've identified the gifted. Singaporeans identified the gifted. These are people who are born with high IQs. They sit in our classrooms in Ghana and they are frustrated because they don't think like the teacher, they don't think like other students. They were born with it, you nurture them, you put them into engineering classes, you give them biomedical sciences in high school, they are coming out with innovation, and that is where you lay a strong foundation for the transformation of your country because you are tapping into all talents. So, my brother, the issue we have is
this is a philosophy Esan Kumar has been talking about, that human resources, not natural resources, is what you need to focus on to develop your country. We have been dependent on cocoa, gold, and still see where we are. Singapore, a very small country, small population, well developed, almost like 80 to 90% of the population don't have a problem with accommodation. A very small land, and yet they've developed it so well. Their GDP 1,000 times,
of course,
more than ours, which is a big surprise. We're still talking about your unique selling proposition when we put you in the race of the 5. What's your winning proposition for the presidency, for the flag bearership, and then the presidency?
I'll tell you this. When I go around the country, yesterday I was at Ho Central, great meeting, share my vision with them. I tell them that they need to know who Dr. Duchuma is, where I came from, and where by divine providence I've been to and I am now. And I tell them that if you look at other countries that have transformed, that have been able to eradicate poverty, they did not do that just exporting cocoa, raw materials, and gold, which are all good things. But they look at education, and as they industrialize of export-driven economy, if you look at what Winsemius, the economists, help Singapore do, he moved them quickly from import substitution to export-driven economy. But they also were mindful that if they don't get the engineers and other people, export-driven economy will not be sustainable. because they cannot depend on expatriates. They needed to develop Singapore, develop their labor, and make sure they have the technical expertise to move industry. And that's what they did. So you have a symbiosis between education and industry. You boost TVET, and then you move into heavy manufacturing. Then you train TVET and engineers in heavy manufacturing. So they give value to what you are producing. There's increase in productivity. And before you know, your country is transforming. You boost economic growth. You cannot look at economic growth of 5% and 4% and say you are transforming. You have to look at 9 to 10% consistently over 20 years. Dr. Aduchu, my unique selling proposition is very simple. I have global experience. I have world-class experience in education and private sector. I raise funds from Wall Street to build schools in America. I know how the American financial system works. I work with investment bankers. We package bond financing. I was able to raise 20 million for this school, 30 million for another school. I know how the systems work globally. I also know something. What I know is that we have to create a nation where there's a growth mindset. The American dream that you hear, other countries that have developed, they got to a point that there was a self-efficacy, that we can do it. Dr. Aduchu comes to Ghana, fortunate to have been appointed Deputy Minister, eventually Minister for Education. I became minister in the middle of the COVID. But I also knew that we needed to bring STEM education to this country. Where are we going to get the resources? I had to talk to the World Bank. When it came to training, I had to talk to other organizations, big wing philanthropy, and say, I need to retrain all school administrators. Funding came. If you look at schools that we built, the one that you see on your screen, it's Accra STEM Academy. This is a public school. Look at what the students are studying. The tools that have been given to them. We went around the country, we identified locations for model STEM junior high schools. Chamba in the northern region, a number of other places, Jaben. We built junior high schools that have the same facilities as high schools.
There's no doubt. We have seen the evidence of the transformative, work you did in the education sector, the miracle that some call them Saito. You were able to move them to call it, sort of a first class, kind of an A kind of school. But that's the issue. Your other contenders and their spokespersons will suggest, like some other Ghanaians, that that's where you are best fit to deploy your potential, to deploy your expertise to help the country, and not as the general overseer of corporate Ghana.
I believe that my knowledge in economics and other sectors of the economy is not something that can be understated. I'll tell you this. I'm a land economist before education. I know how to manage natural resources. I'm a trained land economist. That was my undergraduate degree. I went to education when I went to the United States of America. But also I've been placed in a very unique place. I'll tell you one thing. If in this 21st century, you really don't know how your country can be transformed. And I had a very interesting meeting with somebody higher up in the finance ministry some time back who suggested that he didn't know. He said, I didn't know there's education that can change this country. So for those who may understate the importance of education, go and look at all the countries that have transformed their fortunes. None of them did it without education. So that is a big plus for Dr. Aduchu. But you also have to move on and look at how you develop the economy. Because you see, one of the things that we have seen is that in our budget reading, what do we hear? The GDP, and we talk about all the
now you are saying things. Let's not focus on GDP, but GDKP. That's what you said.
Yes.
Instead of GDP.
Yes.
Right.
Professor Humberto from my PhD school, University of Southern California, and Indians adopted it. The point of the matter is that you have to measure prosperity based on the individual Ghanaian prosperity. The person on the street, how is the budget that we've been reading over the year transforming his fortunes, changing his life? Where's the Ghanaian middle class?
Through free SHS, we brought on board a lot of people, to go through school. paid for, and also the free TVET program brought on a lot of people. But here we are, many unemployed. Not that they do not have the skills or they do not have the knowledge or they do not have the certificates. They are unemployed. They are looking for decent jobs they can find.
You see,
so we are not solving the problem with education.
You have to have your manpower needs assessment done. God willing, MPP delegate give me a chance, Ghanaians give me a chance. My first 2-3 months will be about manpower needs assessment. What are the skills that are in short supply in Ghana? And we don't even know. Many companies are importing certain kind of expertise from India and that place to Ghana. Cyber security, there's 500,000 shortage of workers in the US. You get a cyber security certification, you may work for US companies from Ghana. India has done it.
Cyber security is an area that this country did a yeoman's job. From a 32% or so by the Global Telecommunications Union ratings for Ghana in 2017, by 2024, we had gone to 99+%. First year, equal with the Singapores that you like to talk about.
That also tells you we have opportunity to export people with expertise. And when we say we did a human job, which is good, the underlying factor is that who were behind the computers doing the work. And what are other job opportunities within and outside the country? If our universities are incentivized through grants to establish courses that are in high demand, then you solve the unemployment problem, at least up to that point. But when you have courses that are being offered that may not produce the kind of graduates even the country is demanding. When I was a minister, I had a wonderful discussion at one New Year's event at the University of Ghana, where I said that universities have to take a look at the courses that are being offered. Some people took me on that universities are not there to create jobs. They are not there to train people for jobs. And I said, okay, if they are not there to train people for jobs, then don't train accountants. Don't train medical doctors. You are preparing them for work.
Correct.
If you offer courses in development education and you know there's nothing like development education as a profession, then we have to take a look at the kind of students who are coming out. So many universities offering business administration is attractive to the students. Where are the jobs? So we have to begin to take a look at, one, to stop the unemployment pipeline, counseling at high schools and junior high schools. Because Ghana
But if we spoke about that, we need nurses in their numbers. We need doctors in their numbers. We have trained many nurses, but there are no jobs for them here in the country. Let's come to how your delegates, the NPP delegates, are responding or warming up to Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. Why should the delegates vote for you, despite the fact that you have not been topping the surveys like the other two contenders?
I like to be in the underdog. I like to be underestimated. Nobody knows my strategy, and I'm going to say it here. But you see, the bottom line is that when I talk to the delegates, they are just like other Ghanaians. They are looking for opportunity for their children. When I talk about the golden age of job creation in Ghana, they applaud. When I tell them we do IT hubs like in Bangalore and other places, they applaud because they know their children will get opportunity. If they did sociology, they can go back to school and do 1 year retraining in other fields that are in high demand, which is informed by the manpower needs assessment that is done. They also understand that there are many other things that they thought they could benefit from when they were delegates and when they were in government that they did not. So I have to then give them assurances as to what we can do to make their lives better, because they know that if Ghanaian life is better, their lives will be better.
They are applauding, but will this applause translate into votes? And that's where we get to. And we'll take a quick break. When we return, I'll be asking Dr. Yao Osei Educhum whether or not all this applause In the absence of the money bag, and people have said he's got good ideas, great ideas, like Dr. Arthur Kennedy when he was contesting for the flag bearership. He was assessed, and a publication in the Daily Graphic said that he had the most and the best ideas among the contenders at the time. But he did not have a deep pocket, or a pocket at all. Because of that, it appears he got only one vote, and that vote may have been the vote that he gave himself. I'll also be finding out from Dr. Osei-Aduchum whether or not all of this is just to create an advantage positioning for another time rather than now. It's the same question I asked Dr. Brian Achampong when I met him. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. It's brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN. Everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. What Dr. Osei-Aduchum wants to see is that kind of education that you get from Ashesi University that makes you ready as a global citizen. You can compete anywhere. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks, it's strong, it's tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients are passion. International Facilities Management Association, they are proudly associated with your most authoritative news analysis platform, Newsfile. Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. Goldboard Jewelry, pure, precious, proudly Ghanaian. And Koa Natural Juice, a 100% cocoa fruit juice. Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum is my guest. He is a presidential flag bearer candidate in the NPP's flag bearership race, hoping that on the 31st of this month, he will be voted to become the flag bearer of the NPP, leading to a rebuilding of the party, and hopefully in 2028, he will contest to become president of the Republic of Ghana. You've listened to him so far. Share your views with us. What do you think about him? Is he fit for purpose? And that's the series we are doing on Newsfile for you. I mentioned Brian Achampong. We should have him next week join us, and you can see the trajectory of those we are speaking to before the elections on Newsfile, because we are deliberate. They deserve the limelight that they should get to also put their message across, both to the country and to their delegates. So, people are nodding when you are telling them how changing the course of this country, giving this country a great future, begins with changing the hearts with education and everything else. They applaud, but are they with you? And the question I ask is the monetization of the process. You don't seem to have the money bag.
Not the money bag, but people are supporting. There are many people who have visited Dr.Duchum.org, and they are supporting around the world. They want to see a new kind of politics. A politician who come into the space and say, I want to change the course of history of my constituents. Look at the Bosumtwi miracle, as people call it. 93 engineers graduated the last 2 years from one constituency, fully sponsored through Yao Osei-Aduchum Foundation. Accommodation taken care of, school fees paid, stipend to take care of their feeding.
I wrote about that on Samson's Stake and commended you highly for it, because the whole world and the nation, regardless of how partisan, how polarized you are, should see that that is a great thing. That if we had all our MPs doing that, we will have a great nation. But that's a small constituency. You are able to take, looking up to close to 100 or more people to become engineers, to become doctors.
It's a good example, Samson, of what can happen in this country. A good example, because you see, when you are electing a flag bearer, you are electing somebody who can win the general election. That should be the focus of the delegates, and that's the case we make with them. That look at Dr. Educhum, look at my handiwork, go around the country. Every location you're going to find a school that I was able to put there. Going to see a model STEM school. You are going to see something that you did not expect in STEM education. Biomedical sciences are being taught now in high school. Aviation and aerospace in our high schools. Go to Opoko at Prempeh, we are doing engineering. Go to Presec, we are doing engineering. Dr. Educhum is that kind of person who dreams big, visionary, but is a hands-on guy. I know how to implement. So if you're looking for somebody who can help to transform this nation, you are looking at Dr. Educhum, because I'm not just a politician, I'm a techno-politician.
But the delegates are enticed by goodies, money, and there are those who can afford to do that.
My brother, when the MPP was going to elect a bearer for 1996, President Kufuor, now president, was underestimated. It was a huge surprise. The Selbys, the Dubois were there. Had the question of some people saying, let's take somebody who had been tested, a Dubois. That guy, that man, who broke the culture of silence in this country, 5-figure. People thought he should get a second chance. The delegate thought otherwise and gave it to Kufuor. So what I'm saying is that we may be underestimating the wisdom of the delegates. So Dr. Educhum, when I'm looked at as an underdog, I like it. But when I look at the faces of delegates at Ho Central and other places, when they share with me how they felt when I was speaking with them, when they begin to realize that I bring hope, the son of a cocoa farmer becoming the first of his kind to be the president of this republic, a teacher going to be in the Jubilee House. Teachers will be jubilating. Teachers will be with us. Teachers are happy. Teacher delegates are mobilizing for me. I want to be underestimated. The poll that matter will be the poll on January 31st. So I did not step into this without some background. Of course, education minister, largest ministry in this country, handling labor issues.
There are party stalwarts, former ministers, MPs who are making endorsements here and there as far as the two other candidates are concerned, you know, but we haven't heard that of Dr. Educhum.
And that's why I tell the delegates that now is their turn. Because if I don't have all those, the positions are open to them. And people who didn't get the chance the last time, those who got the chance the last time want to get the chance again through the endorsement. Those who didn't get the chance, if you are listening to me, it's your time. Join the trade. Go to dreduchum.org. Support us. It's your turn. Those who the last 8 years did not get the opportunity, it's your turn now. And some are coming and they are supporting because they know others got it. And those who got it are coming out to support and endorse to secure their positions.
What do you tell those who say, you are in this so you can create a position of advantage the next time, in future, and not now? Because now is for one of the two who are topping the charts.
The delegate is watching you, they are assessing. We can't underestimate them. They are assessing. Go to places where people say, before you came, we were thinking about somebody else. After hearing you, we know your personal story. You know what you have done in America. You know you came back because Nana Akufo-Addo asked you to come back. And when you came, you have distinguished yourself. And we know that if we take you to the general election, you'll be more attractive to the independent voter, to the floating voter, to the teachers. To the churches that I worked with. When I became a minister, I did not wait for the mission school leaders, the church leaders to come to my office to speak with me. I made an appointment and I went to them, whether it's for the Methodist, the Catholic, the SDA. I went to them to talk to them about education. They respect me for that. They will be on board. They want a country where the leader is about transformation. We've been at this for a long time.
These people you are referring to are in the general population. They are not the delegates. You must first win the hearts of the delegate, the vote of the delegate, before you get the opportunity for all these people to look at you. The people you spoke to even before you rolled out, you know, you rolled up your sleeves for this job. I remember that, you know, I was one of the people you spoke to, you know, and everybody you spoke to said, you're a good guy. You look like you have the temperament for it. The way you speak about how to use education to transform the country, it's so beautiful and people embrace it. But those people are not the voters.
Don't let us underestimate the delegates. The delegates want somebody who can win the general election. They are not interested in a flag bearer taking them into opposition again. When they look at Dr. Duchman and say, this man will be acceptable to the nation, don't underestimate them. They will go for Dr. Duchman any day. When I go before them and they assess me and look at the hope I bring to that disadvantaged child growing up in Sabzugu, for him to know that I was once upon a time like Dr. Duchman. If Dr. Duchman becomes the president, I have hope. My brother, I will not underestimate the delegates. Something will happen January 31st, and I look forward to it. So, I'm not a candidate.
People are talking about the issues of lack of discipline within the MPP, and now even some of your elders, you know, like Professor Frimpong Boateng, are suffering and are being, unprintable words are being said about Colossus, like such people. I mean, the first person to perform heart surgery, the person who set up the Kolebu, you know, cardiothoracic center, who has a lot of history behind him, done many of first things. How do you feel about some of these things when they say you need someone who can really bring the discipline in the party?
Someone who can bring the discipline to the party, someone who can really think through things and allow cooler heads to prevail. Someone who can work behind the scenes and speak to people, hey, you stop that. Someone who has an idea of rebranding and presenting our party as an attractive option to Ghanaians.
Someone who has the confidence and the support of the masses within the party.
And support and confidence of the masses also demands that you have somebody who has the track record that makes in Ghana that confidence and support. If you have not worked in the public sector and have so succeeded in the public sector, and people have not seen you in action, when crisis occur in the labor unions, the education minister, what role do you play? They've seen me in action. So those people are the villages and towns. You know one thing that they say when I go and see them, they said if you were able to take care of education, if we give you a bigger thing, you'll be able to take it. This is what the delegates are saying.
You were in the running when the lots were being cast for vice president.
Yes.
Presidential, you know, candidate or running mate for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Those days.
You were in the running.
Those days. Unofficially. Because you see, in Ghana, unlike in other places, you'll be told. You'll be told. You'll be told. You'll be interviewed. So you know you were in the running officially.
The question people have asked is people like you, Brian Echampong, who were all in the running for it, why don't you rather throw your support behind him?
You were in the running. How were you in the running? Who ever called you and said you were being interviewed?
The party,
no.
The party at the time were thinking and speaking publicly that we think you should give it to Educhum, you should give it to Brian. So we got to know that this was going on.
But I was never told. so
interesting.
So you are in the running, but you have not been informed that you were in the running. But the bottom line is this: times change. Your assessment of situations change.
Right.
You begin to look at the millions of students who have come out of Free Senior High School, whose schools I have visited. They've come to know Dr. Educhum. When I'm there, the name recognition is there among them, and they are going to be voters. I present a better chance of MPP winning 2028 than other candidates that are running. I'm known, and I'm known by those who matter in the general election. I'm getting known by the delegates. who matter in January 31st. And once I stand before them and I speak with them, they appreciate the fact that I will help this party win the general election. So, my brother, what I know is this. Divine providence has brought me this far.
Someone says fear delegates. Was it a Siedu Nketia who came up with that? No.
No.
It was Sir John.
Sir John.
And he says party delegates over the course of the Fourth Republic have shown themselves as money grabbers rather than visionary nation builders. I am one of Dr. Educhum's constituents. I come from Pramso. This is his fear.
The fear is that fear delegates means do not assume that those who are supposed to be at the forefront are the ones they are going to.
His fear is that you are good. But if you don't have the money to give to the delegates, buy them TV sets and promise them all the stuff.
But that general assumption that somebody somehow doesn't have them, I don't understand it. I'm not a man
those who are giving the money, they are actually saying it.
When I visit them, I don't make noise. When I visit them, they get their TNT. I'm being supported by people who truly care about this country. So the idea that somebody don't have the money, but when I go to Ho Central, I give them TNT just like anybody else. So I want that assumption to be raised from the minds of people, because when people give for TNT, I also give. So this idea that somehow he doesn't have the money, we will raise the funds necessary to help secure the victory in January 31st, because this country deserves it.
Are you supportive of the kind of vitriol? People say your party is going into implosion.
It's a sad story. And I tell people all the time, don't allow your followers to insult others and then talk about reconciliation after the election. After you win, you want people to reconcile with you. If you want people to reconcile with you, talk to your followers to solve the vitriol.
I asked that question because in the last almost 40 minutes that we have been having this discussion, I haven't heard you say anything derogatory about any of your other contenders, like some of them do, to each other.
Because I know I'm going to win, and when I win, I need all their supporters. If I start doing that, their supporters are not coming. I can do a handshake with all of them, and they will smile. But their supporters are not smiling when you insult their leaders. I don't have time.
Who will you support in case you didn't win?
I'm winning. January 31st, I'm going to win.
I'm saying if you didn't.
Why would I do that? When I know I'm winning, I'm going to win. January 31st. They should look at my track record. I mean, public service is very different from private service.
As we wrap up, the issues of just a little bit about, for example, Professor Fimpo is very angry. Do you share his feeling? Like, what's his name again? Arthur Kennedy is also supporting him. He's unhappy. Nyaho Tamaklo, they are unhappy. The way, because he says something, someone is not happy. He said the party is no longer the party it used to be. This is fake. And all hell breaks loose on him. And he's losing his party membership.
I'll tell you one thing. I'll appeal to the party leadership to really calm down on this. In our culture, even age, just mere age, right? That you are older, you should be respected. But you have somebody who has accomplished so much in his life. It's a two-way street. The party gave him a platform, but he also enhanced the party by bringing his expertise to the table. At the time when we were in opposition, a surgeon of his caliber being part of the party was a plus for the party. So even if some words are said that we don't like, we have to find a way to deal with it in such a way that we do not create a situation where he's further vilified through comments by many other people. I will appeal to my brother, older brother, who I really respect. I used to serve as a member of his ministerial advisory board as a deputy minister at the time. And I worked with him closely as a member of his ministerial advisory board. His passion for innovation, for environmental issues, and many other things is worthy of commendation. So I appeal to him to also calm down and cool down. Better days are coming. When Dr. Educhum is the flag bearer, We are going to bring parties together.
What is the cause of this, particularly within the political parties, that there's no respect for the elderly anymore? And if you are not, we're not just talking about the elderly, someone of such international repute within the party and party members, some of the things they are saying about him, I can't repeat them.
I'll tell you, social media has created a culture where people can hide in their bedrooms and say terrible things that they cannot say face to face when they meet the person. So it's unfortunate.
So we are losing our values, our cultural values.
It's a cultural value loss that we all have to confront as a nation before even as a party. You get unprintable words being said about former presidents. And because they think when they are speaking in social media, nobody's hearing, but everybody's hearing, including the person that you are talking about. So I think it's a broader problem than just an MPP problem.
Okay.
It happens in all other spheres.
Finally, should there be a sort of a kind of a party campaign financing of sort to help people like you have the great ideas, yet, as we say, even though you question that, you may not have the deep pocket to run for office?
I'll tell you something. Anybody who is listening, I have dredichum.org. If you believe that my ideas are great and you want to see somebody like me as the president of this country, go there and support. Don't give up. And allow those people that you refer to as deep pockets to somehow take over the political space. So if somebody has deep pockets, he get to parliament. And you have others who may probably have better ideas. Ghanaians should rise up and do what other countries do. You see somebody who has what it takes to lead this country, you support. That is how we get the best leaders for this country.
People are listening to you and say there is what I call the integrity communication. There's credibility in your communication. Will you join the other people who are suggesting the party should be calling on people like Ofori-Attah to return to account under the oral and the OSP prosecutions that are being mounted?
I'll tell you one thing. No matter which way you look at it, we have a Ghanaian tragedy. A well-educated Ghanaian who live in the United States of America went to Columbia. That's the university president, Obama. This so wealthy on Wall Street set up a big company in Ghana. This happens. Whether true or not, the idea that the best and brightest minds may find themselves in such a predicament is what I think about. The rest is led to the legal processes. Either it was in America or Ghana, that is what.
No, the call is that he be advised by party people, stalwarts like you, that come home and
you are going through the legal
accountability.
You are going through a legal process. Why do I have to preempt it? Going through a legal process. Allow the legal process to go.
He's not making himself available to go through it.
He's going through if somebody is in detention, what are you talking about? That he's not making himself available. So I believe that he's in the process. We allow the process to work.
Speak to the delegate in the next, 1 minute, and also the Ghanaian who loves you and wants to vote for you.
I'll tell my delegates, the future of Ghana, the future of our party is in your hands before we even talk about the presidential election. You have a chance to elect somebody who will bring a certain kind of respect, dignity, transformation to our party. Somebody who will bring all parts together, because when Dr. Edichum is the flag bearer, you, the delegate, knows that even if you are not for me, you still come to me and you work with me. I haven't said anything about the people that you intend to support or that you were going to support before I came to meet you. All that I'm saying is very simple. You need a unifier. You need this party to rebrand itself and become attractive to Ghanaians, is Dr. Edichum. You need a visionary who is not just about implementer. Somebody who got the opportunity as a minister for education and did not just superintend over free senior high school, but was also able to introduce STEM education, enhance TVET education, and build and commission 80 schools one day. Never happened before. Dr. Edichum, I'll tell you a quick story. The day before election, There was a media guy traveling from Enchi to Asankregwa. There was some commotion in the car. Many people in the car were saying they will not vote. Then the driver said, I'll vote. And they said, why? He said, I'll vote because of Dr. Educhum. Because of the work he has done, I don't want his party to lose, so that we'll lose his innovation. There are many Ghanaians that will vote for our party because Dr. Educhum is the flag bearer going to 2020. Delegate, take a look. You want a presidential candidate who can win the elections. You don't just want a flag bearer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe constituency in the Ashanti region, former Minister for Education, and candidates for the MPP flag bearership. And this morning we've been asking the question, the MPP flag bearer race, who is fit for purpose? And he says, among the five, he stands tall. Questions of integrity and credibility. He's going to use education first to change and transform the minds of every Ghanaian and give the opportunity for development in the manner that countries without resources like Singapore, like India, he says, have done. Thank you very much. And God willing, next week, we may have Brian Champong also take his turn. We are concentrating on these people because they deserve the space to also interact with their constituents. We'll be right back to engage my guests. We have a lineup of great guys who are going to speak to us about the fugitives from justice. Ofori-Attah, Sedina Tamaklo Atieno, who ran from justice here in Ghana, hide in the USA, and they've all been arrested and they are in detention. Ofori-Attah is facing a court on the 20th, and Sedina is facing a court on the 21st. We ask the question, are they homebound by this development? Also, NACA has come in for blame. The institution, the agency responsible for curriculum, they have come in for blame for the smuggle of the LGBT tainted gender definition in the teacher's manual for year 2 SHS. They say it's been withdrawn, it's been removed, but people insist there must be more than that. You must have heard the Asen South MP, Reverend Intim Fojo, who brought this issue to the public, suggesting that this was coordinated. It's not a slip like Felix Kwachio Fosu seeks to say, but it was coordinated from the Jubilee House and at the highest level to bring LGBT to our country. What are the answers to all of these? We'll be right back. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. This is Newsfile, and we have done with the first hour where we spent about 45 minutes interacting with Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. It's brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneur leaders for Africa, MTN everywhere you go, Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial star 165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks is strong, it's tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients are passion. International Facilities Management Association, they are proud to be associated with Newsfile. Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. Gold Board Jewelry, pure, precious, proudly Ghanaian. Gold Board, the entity that has come under controversy in the last couple of weeks, that has contributed through the Gold for Reserve program, right? With the Bank of Ghana contributed a total, as we were told by December, of $10 billion to stabilize the currency of this nation and put our economy in a shape that many are celebrating. Koa Natural Juice, 100% cocoa fruit juice. Now let's welcome my next set of guests for the next, not 3 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. The first 45 minutes we spent with Dr. Osei Educhum, who wants to be the flag bearer of the NPP. And he spoke about his dreams, his ideals, and his prospects that he can see going into the elections. He says he's the most preferred. Ghanaians want him, so the party should elect him to give them the opportunity of coming back to government. My guest for this next session of the discussion, Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, is former Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Victoria Bright is international corporate lawyer and entrepreneur. Susan Adua-Mankwah is Executive Secretary, the National Interest Movement, NIM. Bobby Banson is lawyer and lecturer, Ghana School of Law, Makala. Of course, Sharif Mahmoud Khalid is Associate Professor of Accounting and Finance and Economic Advisor to the Vice President. They are here in the studio, 3 of them, and 2 other guests joining us via Zoom. Gentlemen and ladies, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so how do we start? Let's first take a listen to Victor Smith. Victor Smith is Ghana's ambassador to the U.S., and he has brought some news, telling us about Sedina Tamaklo Atenu, the former Maslok boss, who in 2017 had to get to court to answer for her stewardship for some corruption. It's almost like we forget, the same kind of milieu we have seen in 2025. It's almost the same thing that we saw in 2017, 2018, 2019. She got bail and then got bail for medical treatment in America or wherever and didn't come back to continue with the trial. The case was ongoing together with herself and her deputy, the operations guy at the place. He got 5 years in jail and she got 10 years in jail, but she's not served a single day in jail yet. We're told that she has been arrested, and Ofori-Attah has also been arrested and in detention. Both of them are facing courts in America on the 20th and on the 21st of January. We're asking one simple question. These fugitives from justice, now arrested and in detention in America, are there hopes that they are homebound to come face, one, to face trial, and the other straight to Insawam, perhaps? Let's listen to these voices and return.
Arrest, but a few hours ago, I was also informed the FBI were involved. And of course, that sort of corroborated with what the Attorney General told me, that the FBI had informed him that they had picked him up.
Okay.
I suspect it's a combination of these 2 factors. ICE normally would pick you for immigration issues.
Okay.
But then, of course, when the FBI comes in, then there must be some criminality or Interpol police request. So the red alert comes in there. So the combination of the 2 of them, convinces me that Ghana government had requested for this man to be brought in to help us, if you like, unravel some issues that have been brought against him as a former minister. The extent of my involvement at this stage was when he had been picked up. I discussed it with the consular officers of my embassy, and we decided to make a request to make sure that he was being treated properly as the protocols, international protocols. And so we requested and they agreed in principle to allow us to come and visit. But just before we set out, the ICE people came again and said the detainee had refused to meet with us without his lawyers. That was the initial response from the detention center. And they were going to go back to him and probably request that his lawyers appear so we can come and verify for ourselves that he's being treated fairly and not being denied, for instance, his medication and all that. But we waited for a while. After about a few hours, they came back to us to say the detainee, being the ex-minister, had refused now to see us under any circumstance.
I have gotten from official sources where this lady is being kept and that she's going to go to court on the 21st. Let me say that U.S. Marshals are authorized by the Department of Justice in the U.S. system to effect arrest. The Marshals were authorized by the Department of Justice. Now, that one has nothing to do with, if you like, immigration as, ICE would do. ICE moving as the immigration, unit. Okay, so the U.S. Marshals different from the ICE people. Both are security agencies.
And is she being held strictly for extradition purposes, or are there other legal issues affecting her detention?
That is extradition purposes. There was mention of an extradition request as far back as July of 2024. That is the information I have. So that is the legal request that was acted upon by the U.S. Marshals.
So that's Ambassador Victor Smith speaking to Joy News earlier in the week. And so now, as we know, the two individuals are both in detention and are facing court. But are there any hopes that they are homebound? Let me go to Alfred Choyebua here. Thank you very much, Alfred Choyebua, for making time to join us. All right, so Alfred is not ready yet. Let's get in. Bobby, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Samson, and Happy New Year to you. And Happy New Year to colleague panelists.
Thank you very much. So as a Ghanaian, not just as a lawyer, but as a Ghanaian, are you getting excited that the country is looking for people to account for their stewardship and they are in some sort of trouble in the U.S., whether or not they are going to be deported to this country to face justice is another thing to discuss?
I don't think excited. I would say that I'm excited. The most important thing for me is that we are seeing the rule of law being applied, the legal processes and procedure being applied as far as the Attorney General is concerned or the authorities are concerned, how they appreciate it, with collaboration of U.S. state agencies, as it were, to give an opportunity for those that have been cited or alleged to have committed an offense or a crime in Ghana, particularly when they held public office, to come back and account or respond to those allegations. I think that this would be something that it's not the first time. If you read our political history in the past, not maybe more recent past, but in previous times, there are persons that have also gone away and they've been brought to face charges in that respect. And so this is probably gaining a lot of media attention because of the personality involved and the circumstances under which he left the jurisdiction and his disposition, particularly when the ambassador to the U.S. And this is what I know that they do. They have a consular service that offers these services for all Ghanaians. It is not as if it was only Mr. Ofori-Attah. I know that every Ghanaian that is picked up by ICE under those circumstances, the Ghana embassy contacts them through their consular desk to ask if they need any legal services, they need any help, they need every person, any assistance. And if the Ghanaian has rejected that kind of help, I think that is very important in the scheme of things. It shows that there may be mistrust for that person holding for the official government.
Yes, for Ken Ofori-Attah, what they told us was a conditional rejection. He says he will not speak to anyone without his lawyers. For Sedina, we're told that they understand that they do not allow visits to the place, but things could be arranged virtually, and they are arranging to get to speak to her to find out if she has any needs of support.
Yes, but Mr. Smith said that first there was the conditional rejection, and then later, if I heard him right, he was told that Mr. Ofori-Attah has decided not to speak to them under any circumstances. Okay. So I think that, yes, he said that subsequently. And so that for me showed the level of mistrust as it looks that he may have for the official government agency or representative in the United States. And perhaps we would see how that pans in the general scheme of things. But I would think that even though if he's accused of having committed any offense, he has no obligation, responsibility to assist in any way, give any statement. He can be tried in absentia and what have you. I'm hoping that the Attorney General's department may, if they go beyond the personality and actually go to the root of the matter, because there are a lot of issues that have been raised. We must bring it to conclusion by the state agencies. Okay. They would also be able to recover. This is supposed
to be just your preliminary comments. We'll return to you for substantive comments. Okay. But you can say in 30 seconds that for Sedina Tamakula Atieno, if she's brought to the country, she's walking straight to Insawam and nowhere else, correct?
Yes, because the matter is fait accompli. She's already sentenced and she would come and face charges. I mean, the only circumstances is if the president decides to exercise prerogative and then pardon her. Yeah.
We'll come back to that, whether that should be in anybody's contemplation at all. Susan, good news for our country. People say embarrassment for Ghana because these are people who have held offices and shouldn't put themselves through this.
Oh, I agree that they shouldn't put themselves through this. But whether as a country we are embarrassed, I don't believe we are embarrassed.
They served us at the highest levels.
So they should be allowed to do as they please.
The international media is talking about it. Then they are talking about Ghana, fugitives from justice.
How will we put it? We don't care. This is about us. It's about time that we put us first before we put anybody else. And this is about us. I think that we shouldn't worry whether it's an embarrassment that people have been, as for Sedina, she has been judged to have committed a crime. And asking her to come back and serve her sentence is good for us as a people, for people to see that crime doesn't pay. You understand? It is good for the government to show that even our own, if you fall foul of the law, you will be punished. It is good for the legacy of His Excellency John Dramani to show that in his time there was zero tolerance, irrespective of whether you're a family member or not. And the fact that you punish a family member for wrongdoing doesn't mean that you hate them. It's a deterrent for other people to see. If we don't start punishing the political elite, then we should forget about the people down there, because they look up to the political elite to show the way, to show direction. And if the political elite are going to get away with all sorts of things, then the people down there are going to say, but really, what gives? I mean, we will do as we please. And a lot of the indiscipline and corruption you see in our society is because the political elite seem to be getting away with corruption. So we don't care whether it's an embarrassment. I don't know who is embarrassed, because basically I think that if you called 10 Ghanaians off the street and asked them that, is it okay that somebody who has been deemed to be corrupt has taken the money of poor women, of people who are struggling to put food on their table, has taken the money and wantonly, used it for whatever, is being punished. Are you embarrassed that the person is coming home and it is in the news? I'm sure they'll say no. You understand? And we don't care what other people say. So for me, it's not an embarrassment at all. I think that we need to do this. We need to show that we are not going to tolerate corruption, and it is not business as usual. So I'm not. With Ken Ofori-Attah, maybe it's an embarrassment to himself, because if he actually feels that he's innocent of all the things that he's being charged with, I think it's 70-something, another 78 counts or so.
And he said in his case too, there were 78 charges. 78
seems to be the magic word, magic number.
Actually, I had forgotten about that number. I thought in her case, the charges were actually more. But it does appear that both 78
seem to be fixated with the 78. But I think that, if he cares a lot about his reputation, he will come and let the truth, or whatever the truth may be, come up. You understand?
Well, it looks like, voluntary return may not be an option anymore. It may be too late.
Yeah. So why is it an embarrassment to us? I mean, why should we be embarrassed for somebody to come and answer for his tenure of office? You understand? I'm very sure that there are even MPP people who want him to come back.
Some have made comments so far, and they are saying that the party should be calling him to come.
Yeah, so it helps. It helps their own reputation to say that, okay, we even asked for him to come back. And if they actually believe that he's innocent of all the charges against him, he should come and prove.
But that call may be too late in the day, because it may only be relevant if he's facing eyes only for the immigration process, and he succeeds in the immigration process and he stays back. But if this terminates in his deportation, it is not your call that makes any difference, because he's coming anyway.
So we would hope that the ice that we see now is not the ice that used to be of yesterday. This is a totally different ice. You get it. And if they think that, well, go to your country and go and answer to charges. I mean, this is a country now that goes into another country, pulls the president out and says, we are bringing you to our country to charge you and try you for all sorts of drugs, etc., all sorts of crimes. You understand? If they, in the same turn, decide that there's a country who has determined that somebody should come and answer for their crimes, they are going to keep that person. They will be speaking on both sides of their mouth. You understand? It won't go with the current era of what is going on in America. You understand? So I am hoping that ICE will be the ICE that we see now and say, go and answer to your charges.
Right.
Okay.
So those will be your preliminary comments. Prof.
Yeah, this is very interesting, Samson. I mean,
hold on. I hear we have a little issue with your microphone, so let's go to Vicky Bright.
Okay. Where do I even begin? Well, we know that from what we've been told by the Foreign Affairs Minister, the U.S. has assured Ghana of non-interference with the deportation, but without prejudice to the ongoing judicial processes. So we know that. So whatever happens, the U.S. is going to allow deportation if the judicial processes lead to deportation.
Right.
It's a bit sad that a former minister of this country has allowed himself to be branded as an legal alien. I think that's unfortunate because we expect better of the people who we nominate into the highest offices of this nation. So Going back to the first question that you put to Susan, I think it's embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing because, quite apart from the personal embarrassment, I think it's not a good place for us to be in terms of having someone who has held one of the highest offices in this country to be in the situation that he finds himself in. And as we've been told again from the embassy, it's being treated as a special case, precisely because of the position that he occupied formally. So whether we like it or not, there's a Ghana angle there, and it's just not a good look. So for me, I feel it's the right direction of travel for the government to be going after people who are deemed to have done certain things which they need to come back to explain to the people of Ghana because they were custodians of, in Ken's case, a custodian of, our public purse. And I think for all public office holders, you must now know, even if it's trite, even if it's something that you knew before, that from the minute you sit in that office, you are accountable to the people of Ghana for whatever it is that you are superintending over, because it's not yours, it's ours, And so you should be prepared to account for it, whether during your tenure or after your tenure, without being seen to be running away from that responsibility. Accountability to the people of Ghana in public office is non-negotiable. And if you are not prepared to be accountable, then don't hold the office, because nobody forces anybody to hold public office. The president will offer it to you, and then you are free to say, thank you, Excellency, or no, I think this is too much for me. I'm not prepared to allow this kind of public scrutiny and intrusion into, encroachment into my personal life. So please, thank you.
You almost always will lose your privacy.
You will lose your privacy. And so you cannot eat your cake and have it. You cannot hold public office and say, but this one, dear, no, it's not acceptable. So if you can't do it, don't take the position, period. Right. So for me, it is sad. It is the other side of the embarrassment is the FBI's involvement. I mean, we thought it was just a simple immigration matter. The FBI, I mean, they deal with federal offenses. And given the way the U.S. is structured, there are states, the state is actually almost self-contained, if you like. And so there are state offenses and there are federal offenses. So if the FBI is involved, it makes one very worried that, why should the FBI be, because ICE, they have the power to arrest, they have the power to detain, they have the power to go to court to do their own representation, and they have the power to deport once they get that final deportation order from a court over there. So why the FBI? So that is a big question mark. And I guess it's unfolding, and these are preliminary comments, so I'll park my comments here.
But why should that come to you as a surprise that FBI may be involved? For a person that the Attorney General has told us that has been under investigation by the Office of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General has had, interactions with U.S., Department of Justice officials. There are offshore dealings that are also under his microscope. And then before the Attorney General came into office, we had the OSP, which was also doing its investigations, which this minister was involved, not only this minister, with his aide, who is also, Ghanaian and U.S. citizen, who we are also looking to return. And they have filed an extradition process for them to be brought back to the country. In fact, a red alert or notice was issued which I think is the one that prevented Ken Ofori-Attah from traveling around the place, even though he had valid visas for other countries, including the UK. Right. So why are you surprised?
Because, you know, the offshore element is something that came as a surprise to us. Not entirely, because obviously, if you are, and I'm not saying Ken is guilty because I'm not a court of competent jurisdiction. I'm not a juror on any matter, you know. But if you have the kind of financial nous that he has, and you are minded to hide money, then of course you will do it offshore. So from that point of view, it's not entirely surprising that they were looking offshore as well, if they believed that he may or may not have committed certain offenses.
Okay.
But to hear that this is actually something that's being investigated, that international investigators are involved, and I mean, that takes it to a whole different level.
Right.
And that is where the surprise comes
in. Doc, let's not forget that last week, Dominic Anyenini told us that he had spoken to a former U.S. Attorney General who spoke as representing Ken Ofori-Attah together with two other lawyers, including the one who has spoken publicly that we all know. And they were seeking and asking for assurances that he will be giving the treatment, you know, that should be accorded him if he, you know, cooperated, and they were assured.
You know, Samson, just to take it from where you're landing so I don't lose my train of thoughts, is that is a concession that they've run out of strategy to now come in. Because, you know, I don't blame lawyers at all when it comes to issues like this and when it comes to representation of high-profile cases, especially in matters of extradition or outside the jurisdiction. They will hold on to any form of strategy for their client not to come in. And at the point where the ex-US Attorney General start to say, okay, well, can you give us assurances that his human rights would be intact, his XYZ would be okay, they're throwing in the towel. But once that will happen, either than that, they would have still gone on a long haul of strategy to protect this case as much as they could. Right, that said, it is a very interesting thing. I'll say it's a mixed feeling.
That's small bit. Yeah. Just a little legal joke.
Okay.
We say that when the law is on your side, you bank on the law.
Yes.
When the facts are on your side, you bank on the facts.
Yes.
When both are not, bank on the table.
Yes. And that's what is happening. But now they can't keep banging on the table, so they have to go into diplomacy. So what is happening in this case that makes it very interesting? For me, it's one of mixed feeling. But I don't see embarrassment as one of the key elements of the mixed feeling that we have as far as this case is concerned. For me, it is one, I don't know what to say if I come across either Mrs. Sremsai or Anyenini, because it's a masterclass of strategy they've displayed. Masterclass in every sense of it. Because you'd see, you know, the base of the hawks and the base of the political, you know, doing something right, but they had their eyes on the ball, which they never dropped at any point. No one saw this coming. No one saw this coming, absolutely. And if you look at extradition cases, the Guptas of South Africa are still in Dubai, right? Driving to Abu Dhabi to swear affidavits at the South African consulate and going back to Dubai to chill out for a long case, including the Zuma regime, because they believe they were part of it. This is even creating a diplomatic row between Pretoria and Abu Dhabi because they are unable to extradite them. It tells you how complex extradition cases can be. So the two, the Attorney General and the Deputy, realizing the complexity, had other ways of doing it. That's why I call it a masterclass. There should be a case study on how they get this after all of this is done. So now, what happened is, if you realize that as the case went on, right, let's also not forget that bar Professor, the late long-serving finance minister, Kwesi Boche, Ken Ofori-Attah is probably the longest-serving finance minister.
That's right.
And that's very important. And important for the context of this discussion. He's held our purse in both prudential, fiduciary, you know, and other responsibilities for such a very long time, right? So if this is happening, it means that it's a very, very high-profile case. That said, he's exhibited an act of bad faith. Why do I say this? You took permission from the Chief of Staff early January when your party had lost power and if whatever information is out there is accurate, between the 2nd and 4th. So it means the new government had not come in. So if a chief of staff is granting you powers under the state, permission to go for health or medical care, it is only right that you show good faith, right, in the permission that has been granted you. You say, okay, well, if the FBI, I mean, the US sometimes, they advertise human rights, etc. If they deem you fit to put you in detention, it means you are fit to be up or on the next flight to Ghana, right? So you had expired that stay, and that is something we are still not contextualizing within this. So if he left Ghana and then he's back, he's been asked to come. If I were him, voluntarily, just come. Or say, look, I'm taking a break to come to see this. But what happened is, Manasseh, I think, put up a Facebook post earlier. Most people did not pay attention to it. Detailing the visas, his immigration status in terms of visas he has in his possession and their expiration periods. He flew a kite, very interesting kite. So what would have happened is, and you'd see here his lawyers has been very deliberate in actually making every move they made. You say you're in the US for medical care, right? Your visa expires very soon, but you have a Canadian or possibly a UK visa, right? In their mind, this is me thinking. They could have said hypothetically that, oh, if he tried to move to the UK, even though he has a 9-year visa, right, he's only mandated by the immigration rules to be domiciled or to be there for a period of 6 months and would have to exit to go back in. So if his movement become a bit erratic, it shows that you are evading justice and not medical care.
But which, as we know the facts, he actually did. After the first 6 months or so in the US,
yes,
he went to the UK.
Yes.
Because you had to go.
You had to go out
and then come back in.
So
and then he came back in.
Yeah.
But the Interpol red notice had then been issued, which meant he couldn't move again. So if he moved, there was a fear that he'd be arrested anywhere he was going.
Chances are that triggered the red alert to be issued. Because if it didn't trigger it, it means that he would have that freedom of hopping around countries, right, just to meet immigration regulations and not to be in Ghana. You are fit to travel to the UK, but not fit to come to Ghana. Right. So we are not politicizing this at all, but this is where I think that commendation should be given where it ought to be given. Because if the Attorney General and the Deputy did not work, right, because look, how the Chinese walled this to such an extent that nobody knew what was happening is very interesting.
But again, then,
right. So
if the Interpol red notice had also not been issued, then there would have been room and allowance to go to London and return, or go to the next other Canadian passport he has. No, he would have gone back.
Until last week, was the public aware that his visa was revoked?
No.
Has his lawyers challenged that his visa was not revoked?
No.
So you see how interesting it is and how it's playing out. But you see, another interesting feature in this extradition case that is worthy of commendation, not just on the part of the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, but also on the government, the President and Vice President, the Mahama Opoku-Agyeman administration, is that fairness, right? Non-political interference. You see institutions working. Sedna Tamaklo was not tried under an NDC government.
Correct.
She was tried under an MPP government. It is taking her own party's Attorney General to call for her extradition.
The extradition, as I know it, and Chairboy will join us, he was the one who had a brief on it.
Yes.
It had already been done, but it had to be followed up. Well, and I think that's what
Well,
the
but
current
even following up on
done.
it is good faith in terms of continuity of government. Because, I mean, people have accused the Attorney General of discontinuing some cases. So if he had actually wanted, you say, okay, then if it is anything to go by, as I don't have the facts in studio, then you have said, okay, well, I'll discontinue this as well. But he went on. And I've had a success just in under 1 year of the government. You know, excluding the vetting periods and all of that. His work as serious.
He said he could have said he would discontinue this. Because this one, you can't discontinue.
No, when you say discontinue,
the trial has completed, he's been convicted and sentenced.
No, I'm talking about the extradition process.
Okay,
that
continue
the former
with that
Attorney
process.
General said had triggered. So he could have decided to be, indifferent about it. But he pursued it as much as he's pursuing it Ofori-Attah. So there's no case of political witch hunt. If you weigh the two. Right, Sedna's own party, right?
There has been a lot of pressure. Once Ofori-Attah was being sought for or after, then the NPP consistently said, why are you looking to extradite Ofori-Attah when there is somebody
Samson,
that you are supposed to extradite you haven't done?
You know our politics. regardless. That's where commendation ought to be given. It has to.
Right. Okay. So you hold it there for me. Let me go to Alfred Cheyebwa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning, Samson.
Great. You and I have had discussions about Sedina Tameklo in the past, and the fact that you had triggered the process, and yet, very little was being done to consummate it. I suppose today you're excited about this, right?
Samson, definitely I'm excited because the work that we commenced while in office has actually come to fruition. After her conviction, we went back to the court for a warrant for her arrest. Subsequent to that, we began the extradition process, and in July 2024, everything was forwarded to the relevant authorities for the process to commence in the U.S. So upon exiting office in January 2025, it was my expectation that the process is fully through. And thankfully now, we are told that Sedina has been arrested by the U.S. authorities awaiting her extradition.
Questions have also been asked, why did it take you so long after her conviction to begin the extradition process?
Something. She was convicted in 2024. I don't know the exact date. Right after her conviction, we began the process. And those who have worked the ages, they know the steps which you can have such a matter expedited in another county. And so we activated the office through the DPP's office. At the end of the day, everything was done. I remember I had an interview somewhere in August 2024, where I made the public know that he had been able to locate where Sedina was living, and she was being monitored by the U.S. authorities, and that very soon she will be arrested, and then this of extradition definitely begin. But be as may, now we are told that she has been arrested, detained. It is my expectation that the extradition process will go through the U.S. and then to be brought back to Ghana to serve a sentence.
Can you also confirm to us that once she's brought to Ghana, she gets to the airport, what happens? She goes home?
The moment she gets to the airport, there is a warrant for her commitment to prison. She ought to be arrested by the security agencies and right away into prison custody. No two ways about that.
We have people who have had warrants on their heads, come through the airports, walk through their homes, go to do processes in different courts and walk out of this country. So please, how can you be so sure that you will come to the airport, get arrested, and through to the Insawam?
Unless there is state complicity, if the state decides that it's not going to activate agents to monitor and arrest her at the airport, then that's where we will be. But if the state decides to activate whatever it's supposed to do, then from the moment she lands in Accra, she ought to be picked up and be sent to prison custody. But the space is being monitored. And in the moment that process is completed in the U.S., Ghanaians will also be watching to see what happens when he gets to Ghana.
She was convicted, and it's been over a year since her conviction and sentence. The sentence begins from the very day of the conviction. So when she comes, if she does, and she's taken to Insawam, is she going to start fresh? Is that how does it work?
Yeah, Samson, I know that's quite contentious. I've listened to arguments from lawyers that if you look at section 294, if I'm not mistaken, conviction or sentence starts from the day that it's pronounced. For that matter, so far as she was convicted and sentenced on a certain date, her sentence will start from that date. But in looking at statute and other provisions in an act, you have to look at the intention behind such provision. If you read that provision so carefully, you realize that it assumes that the moment that person is convicted, the person is under the custody of the court and will begin his or her sentence. And so it will also involve the judiciary at a point in time. If President argues that her conviction, after her conviction, she spent some years outside prison, that count, the state also say no. Let's go and then based on this section in the criminal act. Speaking for myself, the intention behind that section is that at the time that that person is sentenced, that person should be under the custody or in the custody of the court. For that matter, you don't have the latitude of going back home. But if you are home, for example, if she spends 9 years in the U.S. and is extradited to Ghana, are we going to say that she'll come and spend about 6 months and they'll be set free? That will be absurd. That's the reason why I think it will require some judicial intervention at a point in time to know the true meaning of that section in Act 30.
The chief operating officer of the Maslog that she worked with, who was also tried and convicted to 5 years, do you know if he's in fact in prison? Because I'm hearing that just a while ago that he must have gotten some bail and is challenging the appeal. What do you know? Challenging the conviction. When
he was convicted, he filed an appeal.
Right.
And so before we left office, we're looking at how those processes will be done in court and for his appeal to be heard. I only realized within the week that the Supreme Court has granted him bail pending appeal. I just read it. And so the presumption is that since he's granted bail, he should be home now. But that doesn't mean that the conviction of that gentleman has been set aside. But just that the Supreme Court has granted him bail from what I read from the newspapers.
Yes, so all this hue and cry about bring her home, and she comes home, she's also entitled. She could go seek appeal, file an appeal. Time may have run out, but she may go for extension of time to file the appeal, file an appeal, and then seek for bail and could really be at home and not hiding like she was in the U.S.
I mean, it's so surprising if she's granted bail by any court in Ghana. I'm not a court. It's not about conviction, about it. Bail. Because as you know, if you were granted bail in a case and you jump that bail, by law, you are not entitled to any bail again.
Right.
She was granted bail by the court. She stopped permission of the court to come to the U.S. for medical reasons. She has jumped bail. In fact, her surety, I think, Mr. Alex Mood, had to go through because we're trying to also restrict the bond against him.
That's right.
And so now that he's now arrested in the U.S., if she comes to Ghana, by law, she's not entitled to bail. As for her right to appeal, that is her right. If the court looks through and realizes that maybe her conviction was wrong or something, definitely she'll be acquitted on this charge. But we are keenly watching this space because there are people who also have some kind of conspiracy and arrest, but I don't want to believe in conspiracy.
Right.
They are keenly watching this space, what will happen.
Right. So let me find out from Bobby about this, the two of you, the lawyers, if you have any different views on that. Bobby, what Ofori-Attah Yeboah is saying, do you agree with him that such a person will not be entitled to bail any further, having once breached the bail bond? And I remember that she put people like Alex Mould in a very difficult position. I remember Beatrice Ananfio, who was then acting as lawyer for Alex Mould, seeking to get Alex out of that complex web.
Well, Samson, bail, the grant of bail or otherwise is at the discretion of a court. And one of the conditions for the grant of bail is for you to show if you are likely to breach the bail bond. And if there's evidence that you have breached the bail bond once, I think that one would think that in exercise of the law as we know it and as we have practiced it, judges will find it very difficult to give you another bite at the cherry, except that, of course, maybe the conditions will be stiffer than the first one, and you're able to convince the court why you breached the bail bond once and the circumstances under which you want to commit to the fact that you will not be able to breach it. So I agree with Senior Alfred Tuah-Yeboah with his analysis and conclusion, except to add that it's at the discretion of the court. And you know that the exercise of discretion is not cast in stone. And so looking at the facts and the evidence that may be brought before the judge may decide to grant bail or otherwise, even though I agree that it's more unlikely than not. And I also want to say that I agree with his analysis, the legal argument about if you are convicted and you do not spend time serving that conviction, whether or not the period will still count from the day you are convicted. I think that I'll draw an analogy from the provisions in the Constitution that says that if you are convicted and sentenced, the time that you have spent in lawful custody should be considered by the court in the award of the sentencing period. I think that when we read that constitutional provision together with the provisions of Act 30 and Act 29 that relates to when sentencing counts, I would want to agree with the former Attorney General that I think that you cannot say that if you are sentenced and then you are able to run away from serving time, whatever time that you are caught and brought back should be considered so that the remainder of that time should count for the period that you should serve your sentence. I think that would lead to absurdity and the mischief will not be cured.
So like you say, somewhat you agree with Alfred Tuah-Yeboah that if she came and began to activate appeal processes and sought bail, it's most unlikely that she'll be granted bail by any court.
Yes, I think looking at the
you would be surprised if she was granted bail by any court, won't you?
I will be surprised if he is granted bail by any court. Like I said, unless
that kind of bail would have been influenced by political rather than legal, reasons, correct?
If you say that kind of bail, if she's granted bail.
If she got bail.
I would not want to think that there will be political. You know my position when it comes to.
No, I want you to call a spade what it is.
No, but that's your question is premised on the extrapolating. That
do you think anywhere in the world, someone who has run away from justice and has to be extradited has the chance of ever getting bail?
I would say 1 out of a million. And like I said, the grant of bail is discretionary remedy. If she comes to Ghana and there's evidence that she has, and I'm just thinking aloud, a peculiar medical condition that keeping her in cells for that period may not be beneficial to her health, and she's able to provide that evidence, and the court is able to agree with the Attorney General on an alternative accommodation under those circumstances.
There are people in prison. There are people in prison who are sick. I've been to the prisons and I've seen people who are in the bed on their beds, and they are looking for oxygen for them. They don't say because they are sick they should get out of the place.
No, the conviction. I think that if we, and again, I'm not saying that she deserves bail. I'm saying that looking at the circumstances, it's more likely that she will be granted bail.
Okay.
But we must not forget that the exercise of discretion to grant bail is on case-by-case studies.
Yeah, and but in this case, as you have said, it will not be entertained at all.
The court will listen to, if they make an application for bail, the court will listen to it, but the court may decide not to grant it.
All right.
Looking at the history of the person, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And once the extradition processes were triggered by us and the letter was dispatched, Ghana had no control over it. It was left to the American authorities to execute it. So it is not the case that the present government did anything at all. It took long because extradition is a long and complex process. The process is that the extradition request, after being dispatched by Ghana, first goes to the State Department because apart from being legal, it is also diplomatic. The U.S. receives it and the State Department. And then after doing the relevant work on it, the State Department sends it to the Justice Department. The Justice Department, after doing whatever it does, will then assign it to the particular U.S. District Attorney in whose jurisdiction the person sought to be extradited resides for execution, this will involve a lot of steps, including going to court for an order. The application will have to be served on the accused, who has a right to justify why he should not be extradited. That is why it might have taken that long in America. But the point must be made that this administration never really did anything to, quote, speed up, end quote, the process. Ambassador Victor Smith's letter shows that the American authorities acted on my request sent in July 2024. In any case, from July 2024, the processes for extradition commenced. The MPP stayed in office for 5 or 6 months after the request was transmitted and received. NDC has been in office for a whole 12 months period thereafter. So this is a message I've read, and you clearly know where it is coming from. It says that Ambassador Victor Smith's letter shows that the American authorities acted on my request sent in July 2024. That's the extradition request. So this is accurate, that this government didn't do anything to speed up Sedina Tamaklo's extradition, right?
Samson, the government must tell us what has done so far to get Tamaklo arrested in the U.S. So far as we are concerned, we did what we were supposed to do. What was left was for the U.S. authorities to act on our request. They've acted on it. But if this current government says that they've done A, B, C, they should tell us. I mean, that's as simple as that.
But you can say and double confirm, as your boss has just done, that the government of Ghana under John Mahama did zilch, nothing at all, to complement what you did, sending the extradition in July of 2024, correct?
Samson, last week you hosted the learned Attorney General.
Right.
If you read the letter of Ambassador Smith, Madam Tamaklo was arrested on the 6th of January, right?
Yes.
If that's the case, then why is it that when the AG appeared before your show, that issue also never came up?
Actually, when the AG appeared, I had a series of questions and I had themed them under extradition. Under extradition, I had a question for him for Ofori-Attah, and I had a question for him for Sedina Tamaklo. But by the time we're done with the Ofori-Attah issue, which surprises came up, we had run out of time. We had done almost 20 more minutes beyond the time I was supposed to host him. So I didn't get to ask him the Sedina extradition question. So he didn't say anything about that.
Fair enough. So he was arrested on the 6th of January. Why should we take the ambassador in the U.S. to issue that statement? If the AG had this information, because it was based on a request for the government of Ghana, had this information, I was expecting that she would have come out first. You see, based on a request that was put in by the government of Ghana.
Alfred, I suspect you are preempting my cross-examination of you, because I have spoken to you on this matter a number of times, and you have blamed the current government for doing next to nothing to ensure that Sedina Tamaklo was actually extradited. The NPP as a group have consistently blamed the Mahama administration for doing nothing. If you knew, like your boss has just said, that the government of Ghana was not required to take any further step, but what you sent to the extradition you sent in July 2024 is all that was to be acted upon, why do you now say this today? Why did you blame them? Why did you get your people to believe that Sedina was not being extradited, meanwhile Ofori-Attah was being chased?
When you filed a request, definitely through diplomatic channels and other communications, you may do some follow-up. But the question that I'm asking now, that if indeed they made those follow-ups or anything, why should we take the ambassador, the Ghana's ambassador in the U.S. to issue a statement almost 10 days plus or less after the arrest of Sedina? They were not aware that she had been arrested. If actually they were following up they should have known, just like how they go to know for arrest and the rest. So that's my belief. And
To be frank, following the interview with Victor Smith on Joy News, I think Joy News desk, he actually has said that someone gave him the information. Then he had now to take his time to double check, to verify. So you are right. He would not have known.
Thank you. So we're not following up. As simple as that.
The AG's department, as deputy, you had your boss. They've all, phoned into the program to say, okay, this is what we did. But in any case, who writes a letter or who initiates such a process and gets a response after 1 year? Right. So if we're talking about a fresh case of extradition here, right, as to whether pertaining to what time the ambassador had the information, it's neither here nor there. The ambassador is not an acting authority on this matter. What he's only doing is that he's trying to act as a stopgap in terms of information flow between the government, right, and the public. And that is what Ambassador Smith did.
When you were speaking, you were repeating praise ought to be given where it is due.
Where it is due.
And that's why they are seeking to point out to
so
you.
if you want to point out, just say, look, we had this correspondence. You didn't
have to do any other thing.
So my point is that, tell us that, look, July of 2024, we had ex-correspondent with this. It is based on that this correspondence that this had happened. But none of this had been, he has not, whatever question you throw at, he comes back to you to say, why didn't you do X, Y, Z? But you have the information, tell the people of Ghana that this is our case, our extradition case that has been responded to because we wrote this at X, Y, Z. And here's the evidence of the correspondence.
No, but not factually, there is only one extradition process against her. There was not a new one.
Yes. So, if the Attorney General said, look, I have continued with this extradition case and would ensure that that happens. If you have contrary view to that, come out and say that this is what it is.
He's suggesting to you, if that there was such, interaction.
When did the extradition start?
Then the ambassador would have known.
No, my point is that when did why would the ambassador know?
Somebody had to whisper to him, and then he had to go
and he's
checking
coming
out,
to give that
verify.
stopgap. Imagine, this is a watertight case that the AG is running at his department, that even some key government officials are not aware of because it's an independent case and watertight because of the interest around it. So they don't give out information easily. So if the ambassador gets this information and decides that, look, in my capacity as ambassador, this is the information I have. I'm not representing the state. I'm not representing the AG's office. I'm only serving as a stopgap in terms of communication between, the Ghanaian public and what's being put out there. So we cannot hint that because the ambassador did not get, he should have been the primary recipient of the information. That premise
you spoke about
wouldn't
the
help.
duo. and said they had done
and I'm pinning it on the duo. Yeah, so pin it on them.
Thank you. Susan, listening to the lawyers talk about the law and all of that and listening to Prof. Khalid also, what do you say now?
When you said that you were reading this, I was like, but I thought the MPP, in your introduction, you said the MPP said that what is the government doing about what do you call it?
They've actually consistently blamed them for inaction.
And that they shouldn't talk about without setting up.
Right.
And now you come back to tell us that, well, the process that you started, nothing was done. It was just a matter of course, and it was due. So you had started the pregnancy, and now it was just going on its way, and it's now, giving birth to. So I was like, okay, so which is which? And it is some of these, for want of a better word, mendacity or duplicity of politicians that people get wary of. You understand? And we are like, how do they actually believe us or think that we will believe them when they say anything? Because you say something one time and then you say another thing which is in contradiction to each other. If it was a matter of course, then fine. It had reached there and it was due and it happened.
I think it is sincerity that and credibility that we need from the politicians, because extraditions normally take a long time.
Exactly.
So whilst the extradition of Tamakulu was ongoing, what the NPP's leaders should have told their base would be that don't point fingers at the Mahama administration because it will take a while.
Apart from it taking a while,
they rather, some of them were leading it and saying, you have done nothing.
Exactly.
While
it's not static. Things evolve.
And then I was also wondering, just administratively, who sends a letter and just sits back and waits for something to happen? Really, I mean, I work in an institution. If you send a letter or an email to somebody and sometimes don't do the active follow-up, it can take 10 years. But if you do an active follow-up, it may be a long process, but it will probably take 2 years.
But it's a fair demand that if there's any suggestion that it is this Attorney General or this administration that has pushed the July extradition of Sedina for us to get this result, then they should show evidence of it. That's a fair demand, right?
Yes, definitely. It's a fair demand. I mean, and the government should respond to it. That if they have, I mean, after all, it should be documented. It's not going to be a verbal thing. It's something that should be documented, and they should be able to show some documentation to say that, look, we just didn't leave it like that. We have the documentation to prove that we have done follow-ups, and so a process that probably would have taken, 6 months.
But is it possible that if the Attorney General says he has been in constant interaction with his counterparts in the U.S., is it possible that whilst they talk about Ofori-Attah, he will say, we have an extradition before you, please look at it for us for Sedina?
It's very
so
possible.
There will not be evidence to show.
No, it's very possible, but I belong to a research facility. If it's not written, it's not done. So if he said it and it wasn't written and there was no documentation to follow up, then it wasn't done.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Unless his counterparts in the U.S. can corroborate.
Well, I mean,
if he says so. Right.
It wasn't documented. You can have a conversation with somebody. To cement that conversation, you say, I'll write you an email. I'll shoot you a line or two so that you say, as previously discussed, can we...
Very
so that
good
there's
professional practice, yeah.
There's always documentary proof of something. Right. Every time, there should be documentary proof of something. Not just for... so that people can have an argument on it, but for history. You understand? To say that we had this conversation and we documented the conversation to say this and this had happened. And I think that is the way we should go with things. So from my mind, I think that maybe now the MPP, they should come up with a stand. They started the process, happy stance. It has happened in this thing. But it is also very symptomatic of our politics. People wanting to take credit for things. And I think that it brings our politics to, I did this, you did this, I did this. We are supposed to be there for the good of the people of Ghana. It doesn't matter whose action it is. If the action is done for the betterment and the growth of the people of Ghana, we shouldn't care who takes credit for it. There's too much of that in our politics. And that is what leads to, I'm building a hospital, I come next and I want to build my own hospital and I don't want to continue.
Right.
It is
and it's our money that is getting wasted.
Exactly.
All the time.
So they say that the best work is done when people don't care who gets the credit for it, as long as the good that was behind that action is done.
Saved.
And I think that we should move away from that kind of... Yes, praise should be given when praise is due, to encourage people, but that should not be the basis in which our politicians should operate. I think that we want to move away from that.
Thank you very much.
Thing.
A very important issue, and I'm coming to Vicky Bright now. And in the course of this week, one of those issues have come out public about the Ghana Publishing Company, for example, where the current leadership, after about barely 1 year, is seeking to take praise for everything, credit for everything that has happened there. And then the leader of that place, David Asante Boateng, has also come out to say, you are wrong. And some of us have had to go to his defense on that regard, because I am a user of the Assembly Press, for example, because I need laws, I do things, there are notaries, other stuff there, like change of names and other things. And for a long time, the place was abandoned. The place was deserted. You didn't like to go there, even the bookshop. You go there and you are in a hurry to leave. But when David Asante Boateng took over, he transformed that place sincerely. 2019, I did Samson's Stake to focus on David Asante Boateng, to praise him for justifying the appointment of youth, because he had transformed the place dramatically, miraculously. And only today somebody comes and says he did nothing. This is a thing that we should stop. What you have heard, you know, across the table and on Zoom, what do you have to say about these extradition matters?
Look, extradition is a complex process and it's a long process. Typically, it will take between 1 and 3 years, and that's when it's going smoothly. You know, so it's no surprise that it's taking that long. But at the same time, as everyone's been saying, it doesn't kind of go along by itself. Someone has to push it along. And the country that made the request has to remain interested in the request and follow it up, etc., etc. So MPP, yes, they started the process. NDC clearly took over at some point and pushed it through, because I don't think the timing of Ken's extradition and Sedina's extradition, well, Ken's detention, I should say, and Sedina's...
The arrest was actually the same day for both of them.
Exactly. So it was coordinated. So I don't think that was just a coincidence, you know. So we have to give credit to this administration as well for following it through, because after all, MPP had been going on and on about you're not doing anything, you've just left it because it's one of your own, etc., etc. And so they've done it, actually. They arrested both the MPP person and the NDC person.
Is it possible that the Ghanaian authorities, seeing that extradition takes a long time, like you said, 2 to 3 years, decided to snitch on its own citizens who were there and were wanted, and so ICE rather went for one, the marshals went for the other, instead of following the extradition process?
It's funny you say that, because, you know, in the UK, I know that the nationality, the people who snitch on each other the most are the Ghanaians. The Nigerians don't do that to each other. But the Ghanaian will call the Home Office and say, Kofi, you know, is in wherever, East London, wherever. You know, go and this is his address, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll quietly sit there. He doesn't have papers, you know. So it's possible. We do that to each other. And this whole thing about, you know, people wanting to take credit, sometimes to the detriment of the actual national discourse or development, it's a serious problem that we have in this country. I don't think that what David Asante Boateng has done should be discounted, because you're right. He did. I mean, I didn't like going to the Assembly Press. In fact, I would almost never go there. I will send a clerk to go, you know. And what he's done, or what he did back then, is something to be commended. Right. And what the new person has done in the first year is also something to be commended. But don't do it without giving credit to what started before. It just doesn't help us in any way at all as a nation. Right. So I think we need to give credit where credit is due.
Because I think maybe my stance on praising the Attorney General's office is probably what is bringing all this, right? So to give clarity to it is that I wouldn't have done so if they were not attacked from the outset, because they were attacked for doing nothing. So if something happens...
I hadn't quite landed.
Oh, sorry. She's a presidential lawyer, so she takes her time. So that was a very long pause. I apologize.
So no. So I was, no, I mean, I had almost finished. Yeah. So I'm just saying that... So this extradition matter, I think that this government clearly took a step in accelerating Sedina's extradition in her case.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we want to take a break from here, but Tuayabwa, Alfred, any concluding comments you want to make, because your commentary has stayed on Sedina. I haven't heard you say anything about Ofori-Attah. There's a request by people like Hobson Adoye that the MPP as a group should have been urging Ofori-Attah to voluntarily do a patriotic duty, a civic duty, by handing himself in. Yes, Alfred. Yes, go ahead. You can be heard now.
No, I've not heard any question. What is the issue?
My question was that there's been a call by some of your party people even that you would have done Ofori-Attah a lot of good if you had urged on him to act patriotic or be civic-minded and to hand himself in rather than now face the embarrassment internationally that he's going through. You didn't hear that? Okay. Bobby, what do you have to say about that in a minute?
I think that I caught on to government being a continuous process. Whatever has started by previous government, once it is in a good light, deserves continuation. And like a lawyer that also used to purchase statutes and things from the Ghana publishing, I think we all saw the good work that was done by Mr. Asante. I think that's his name. Never met him, but my office is just...
He brought the Ghana Publishing Company to its current glory, period.
Yes. And I would, yes, I agree. And I would want to add that even at the point, they were even marketing their services for publication for private authors.
Right.
Which hitherto was not done. During his term, they were marketing that if you're a private author. So the idea was that they were only publishing government laws. And then during his time, they even went ahead to market. And I because I had authored some books, I had a quote from them in that. They
even started the premium services, the express services. And in 2019, when I was speaking and I was talking about even visiting the washrooms there, you have no idea what it used to be. And now you go into that washroom and you're happy. You get to the front desk and they're attending to you. That's what he started. And all the big machines, modern machines that were brought in there. And government, had made issued a fiat asking that people should take government jobs to them, and they began to execute. I spoke to the Electoral Commission at the time, and they said they had given them work for assembly elections. And the guys finished their job almost 2 weeks ahead of the private companies. Can you imagine a state institution that was doing that?
I think, Samson, if this may be of any help, I know of a few CEOs too that were appointed by the former administration that have still kept their post because of the good work that they have done, even more than a year after a change of government. I think that Mr. Nana Ben, I think he's GIF also. Ghana infrastructure something, he's still at post, and I think that the Ghana airport is also at post. So there are a few of those examples that you can put in, but generally at the end of the day, I would have wished that
the cybersecurity boss also kept his post. He took us from 27 or 32% of international ratings to 99+% and brought us at par with Singapore, with US in cybersecurity. Wow. So not everything was bad in the regime, like when people talk about it.
Security issues, even regardless of if it's the same government that stayed, when leadership change, they can still. So that's always a sensitive and touchy area.
Okay, thank you. Alfred, I'll ask you a question. Did you hear it?
Oh, Samson.
Alfred. Hello, Alfred.
Yes, Samson, yes.
Did you hear my question?
No, please you can repeat it.
I'm saying that there are calls on you, that including from some of your members, Hobson Adoye and the rest, maybe former member, who are saying that you would have done Ken Ofori-Attah, well. You would have done him good if all of you had, urged him to be patriotic and do a civic duty by handing himself in, rather than wait until what has now befallen him, suffering such an international embarrassment.
I mean, Mr. Ofori-Attah is an individual within the NPP, and he indicated to Ghanaians why he wanted to travel to the U.S. While in the U.S., things were commenced in Ghana, and he decided to also engage his lawyers. I do not have mass information at its end. And not being a lawyer too, I wouldn't be in a position to advise him. So I'd like to rest here for now, but I believe in due process.
You were not Godfrey Dami's lawyer when he had to go to the police CID and 100 or so of you lawyers from the MPP went there. You were not Wuntumi's lawyer or the other people, their lawyers, when they were held by Iyoko and the NPP massed up there, you know, spending nights over the vigil. So what do you mean by it's an individual and you can't advise them when you can protest over others?
There are two things, legal issues and political issues. When it comes to legal issues, now that I'm not in public office, I've been a private legal practitioner, I offer opinion when I'm duly engaged and properly remunerated. And so in terms of my legal opinion, I'm able to offer it now because he has his own lawyers. In terms of the political process, the party went to the CID or other places to defend or solidarize with those who are arrested. That's not the case in Ken's matter now. Ken has not been arrested in Ghana. He's not been placed in custody. Nobody has masked up somebody to say, don't go and extradite him. What I believe is about due process. If at the end of everything the U.S., it is ordered that Ken should be brought to Ghana, why not?
Okay.
That is due process.
I just had to ask a question, but I know you are a nice guy, Alfred. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Say this, when we're speaking that, maybe Ghanaian politicians don't believe that, is it the quote or the saying that I have seen far because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. We never want to say that we have seen far because we've stood on people who have been great. But great people say these things, you know, that it is not because of them alone, but it's because they have been able to rely on the vision and the wisdom of other people, and that is why they have gone far. Too many times, and of course, but our politicians these days are, well, I mean, hey, okay. That is why they refuse to admit that, because I think part of being great is being able to admit that you were not the only person in that success, and that people had aided you and had been the people who had helped you to get success. I think we must get to that point where we are able to acknowledge that we didn't just pull ourselves by our own bootstraps and that help was given somewhere. I think, you know, maybe then we'll stop this kind of...
Was I seeing you putting your hand up?
No, I just wanted to say we're getting there with the research agenda that we've had. Okay. As you can see in the outlook of the president and vice president, and how things are being done.
Your party people don't like people who act nice, like you're trying to do.
I know that I have a groundswell of support for my party's base, especially the grassroots, in how we do this.
I was surprised to discover that you were in the lecture room in Sheffield for 11 good years
11
teaching.
good years. Most people don't know that. Right. So, I mean, it's quite interesting, Samson. So you have some people even doubting my credentials because of that.
Forget about them. Even Nana Akufo-Addo's legal credentials were doubted in this republic.
They have no idea and they wouldn't ask.
So when we return, how do you define gender identity? This is how it was defined in the teacher's manual for the physical education teaching. It says gender identity refers to a person's deeply felt internal experience of gender. It's not about male, female. It is what you deeply feel in your internal experience of what gender is, which may or may not correspond with the sex assigned at birth. So forget it, whether you are a boy or a girl, that's not exactly who you are. What you are is what you feel. This is the definition here. It can include being male, female, or a blend of both. Really? This concept goes beyond the binary notion of gender, male and female, and recognizes the diversity of gender experiences and expression. This definition is what has brought a problem. And the NACA says this has been withdrawn, removed, and replaced with what our Ghanaian culture accepts. The Catholic Bishops' Conference have issued their statement. You know, you can trust them to do that. And The minority MPP in Parliament have a lot of demands that the head of the NACA should go and some other people should also suffer. But now it's turning out that they had nothing to do with it. We'll be right back to check on that.
On the side of the minority, demand the following actions, grounded in constitutional governance and parliamentary accountability. 1. We on the side of the minority demand that there is an immediate withdrawal of all teaching and learning materials containing LGBTQ related content, including redefined concepts of sex, sexuality, sexual orientation, sexual rights, and gender identity from all schools. You remember when NACA brought their statement, as it were, to respond to Reverend Ntimfodjo. They made mention of the fact that the current manual has been withdrawn from the schools. And Dr. Park also made Ghanaians also know that even though it has been withdrawn, he referred us to an online version of the manual. In that online version, it is even worse. The definitions of what sex, sexuality, and others are is even worse in that online version. The minority is also demanding a transparent and inclusive review of all affected teaching and learning materials involving Parliament, religious bodies, traditional authorities, parents, civil society organizations, education experts, and teacher unions. 3. The dismissal of the Director General of NACA and the Chairperson of NACA Board for failure of oversight and breach of public trust.
There should be no ambiguity whatsoever regarding the designation of a man as in a man, a woman as in a woman, as in biological sex. And sex means biological sex. Reference to man, woman sex means reference to the biological sex and the sex of the person at birth. Settled. So in every educational literature in Ghana must reflect it. So there should be no ambiguity whatsoever in the definition of a man, a woman, and sex. For our purposes, the sex of the person at birth holds. That depicts and reflects Ghanaian values and our laws. And that is how we want to bring up all Ghanaian leaders.
The Catholic Bishops' Conference say they welcome the retraction and replacement correction of this situation. However, they call for a comprehensive review of curriculum development and editorial processes with particular attention to transparency, accountability, and value alignment. They are urging the NACA and the Ministry of Education to conduct an audit to determine how unauthorized content entered teacher materials and to strengthen safeguards against future lapses. And they say that the Catholic Bishops of Ghana reaffirm their unwavering commitment to the moral and intellectual integrity of our nation's education system. Education is not merely about producing skilled workers, it is about forming upright citizens guided by conscience, rooted in truth, and committed to the common good. Ghana's enduring strength lies in her reverence for God, her respect for family, and her devotion to community. These values must continue to shape what our children learn and how they learn it. Joining us in this segment is the man you heard a while ago leading the minority in Parliament to make the demands that they make, Vincent Eko Asefwa. He missed his way from the seminary and got into Parliament, and he's a lawyer. So maybe he would have been part of the Catholic Bishops' Conference issuing a statement. He's the MP for Old Tafo, one of the sponsors of the anti-LGBT plus bill by way of a private member's bill. Welcome, sir.
Samson, thank you.
You are making all the demands, but They have removed the thing. They have changed. They have made a correction. So shouldn't you move on?
Well, Samson, let me say a very good morning to you and to our cherished viewers and my co-discussant. That should have actually been the case, but unfortunately it is not. And I'll demonstrate to you why. This is the document that NACA is saying that they have withdrawn. Document that was published in 2025. In that document, they defined what gender identity is. And I think that all of us have seen that document that they have withdrawn. It's a 2025 publication. They said that gender identity refers to a person's deeply felt internal experience of gender, which may or may not correspond with the sex assigned at birth. This is what they have withdrawn. If you check the statement that was issued by NACA, you remember they referred us to an online version. That very day, I printed the online version, and I'll come to the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference statement as to where I disagree with the greatest of respect in the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference in commending NACA for, as it were, withdrawing that document and revising it. This is the document that I have printed. It is about a 384-page document that they referred Ghanaians to go and check. In that document, page 3 and 5 is actually worse than what they are saying that they have withdrawn.
Really?
Yes, and in page 3 and 5, you can check page 3. They have defined sexual orientation. They define sexual orientation to mean that it describes a person's pattern of emotional, romantic, and sexual attraction to others. Not to opposite sex, to others. To others. It means that a man can say that I believe in this kind of sexual orientation to another man. It does not end there. Come back to page 5. It talks about rights and choices. They defined what rights and choices under sexual and reproductive health. It says that sexual reproductive health emphasizes the rights of individuals to make informed decisions about their sexual and reproductive lives without discrimination, coercion, or violence. This is the revised version. This is the revised version. Now, they also define sexual rights to mean that the recognition of sexual rights includes the right to sexual pleasure, autonomy over one's own body, as well as freedom from violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender. That is why I disagree with the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference with the greatest of respect. When they commend NACA that it has been withdrawn, and for that matter, they should be commended. No.
They spoke too early.
Yes, because my Lord Bishops, with the greatest of respect, even though they have been very consistent about their demands in forming an upright individual and citizen, because in the formation of an individual, it is not just about the skilled labor, it is also about the moral uprightness of the person. And that is why it is very important that care will have to be taken in assessing this document that they have now, as it were, referred us to, because clearly it does not show so.
But will you agree that their commendation is based on what you brought to their attention, which we're told has been removed?
Yes.
And the new definition, gender, is gender, it refers to the binary categories of male and female determined at birth. This is what we want, is that not so? Then gender expression, this refers to the external display of one's gender through a combination of dress, demeanor, social, blah, 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 and they end up with measured by scales of masculinity and femininity. So I think this was the bone of contention, and this is what they are commending for the retraction.
Oh, Samson, you have to read the document in its entirety. In the withdrawn document, it is only gender identity that they have removed from the whole document.
Because that is what you brought to their attention, and all of us our attention.
No, that's what I'm saying, that in reading the document as a whole, it is incumbent on the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference to also understand that there are certain parts of the document that espouses the tendencies of LGBTQ. And that is what I am bringing to the attention of the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference and the general public, that even in the revised document, the definitions that has been stated in there are worse in its form than what we already seen or what has already been withdrawn. And that's what I'm saying, that even though I commend them, their consistency is legendary. And it is very important that we underscore that point. But I'm also saying that the revised version is in its worst form. Now, let me bring your attention to how a curriculum, as it were, because remember, I was a public relations officer for the Ministry of Education from 2017 to 2020.
Hold on briefly for me, I beg you.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure all of us on this table have not paid attention to the new documents. He has brought to our attention definitions that remain in the new document and read some of them to us. Guys, what do you say? Please, go back to those portions you just read.
Do we call it a new document? Based on what he's saying, we can't call it a new document. It's still an existing document. They just expunged what they thought a controversy was linked to. So this is not a new document.
But this doesn't solve the problem.
It doesn't solve the problem. So I think that
please read those back again before.
But let's be fair.
You have to understand that.
Yes.
Your Deputy Minister of Education, Dr. Park, through his Facebook wall, told the people of Ghana that you guys actually revised it. Listen, you actually revised it. That revised form is what has been, as it were, posted on the online version. That is what I've printed.
No, Vincent, if we start to use Facebook posts of personal people in a discussion, as important as this. No, what I'm saying is that, look, we need an official stance on this to move on. Ministers may use discretion to come out whatsoever. It's a big platform and it's a big issue. You're a member of parliament and you've been through the process. I don't want us to say X Facebook said this, Y Facebook said. Let's premise.
For emphasis, let's go back to those portions you have just drawn our attention to.
Before then, the Facebook post I'm talking about was Dr. Park referring us to an official document from NACA. Withdrawing the document. Now let me go to the document. Page 3.
Page 3.
Page 3 of that document.
Okay.
And this is the revised version of the physical education and health that is elective for senior high schools. This is what they refer to.
What paragraph is this?
Page 3. Paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Sexual orientation. That it describes a person's pattern of emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction to others. Now, the combined effect of page 3 and 5, when you read the definition of rights and choices and that of sexual rights, is what is scary. And if you read the rights and choices, it says, and that is under the subheading key components of sexual and reproductive health, it says that sexual rights, sexual and reproductive health emphasizes the rights of individuals to make informed decisions about their sexual and reproductive lives without discrimination, coercion, or violence. And when I'm done, I will tie this one into the recommendation of the Constitutional Review Commissions as to how they want to amend Article 28 of the 1980 Constitution. But I'll get there.
So hold on there. Wait. Prof, hold on. I want the ladies to come in first. What you have heard him refer to, page 3, paragraph 5, then page 5. The definitions we find the sexual orientation and key components.
Yes.
Are they okay? Are you okay with them?
Okay, so first let me ask a few questions. This revised version, in terms of document control, I wanted to know. This revised version, it's because there's a difference between something that is revised and something that has been reviewed and remained the same. So let's say that this is a revised version. The document control numbers should be different. You understand? Different from something that has been reviewed and remains the same, or whatever it is. So I would want to know whether this is a revised version, the documentation is different. That we know that we are dealing with a new document that has new things in it. Otherwise, it's maybe just the old one that had this already in. And because of the highlighted portion, they just removed it, reviewed it in terms of that review.
Your answer is that the one that has been withdrawn was in its hard-copied form that has been distributed across the country to the teachers, which they have withdrawn. In fact, they have recalled all those copies back. Now, in the NACA statement, when they were withdrawing, they told us that we should now assess the revised form on an online platform, that is their website, which I have printed here.
So the revised version is completely different from the one that was being withdrawn.
It is not completely, but it is somehow different. And that's what I'm saying, that even in the revised form, some of the definitions in there is scarier than what...
So the question that Prof asked you, which Susan is continuing on, it's logical for all of us. We want to know whether they simply went to the gender identity and removed that and replaced that.
I can safely say so.
So these were already in the old
I can say so.
And you
see, there's even a twist of it. As at yesterday night, when I went back to check the online version, they had also made another changes to it. Yes, which I have here on my phone. Yes,
so the online one has had changes.
Yes.
So there was one previously, and there's a new document right now.
Yes.
And the new document has new things that were not in the previous.
Absolutely. So in fact, this document, there is no definition of gender identity.
When was this one produced?
This one was produced. Let me say, it was produced by the NDC government because it has been signed by the Honorable Haruna Idrisu. Oh yes, I have it here. I'll show it to you.
Wait.
Can I come in here?
Wait. You see, you confirmed something earlier. Let's be careful not to make any confusion. You confirmed something earlier. This 300 and something page document is a document that was made in 2024 and now has been spotted. No, wait. I'm not saying you have said so.
Okay.
Now it's been spotted that gender identity, the definition is problematic.
Yes.
And the NACA says, we have gone to correct that.
Yes.
But everything else in that document remain. You are not saying that this 300 plus page document has just now been done.
Give me 2 minutes to give you the background. I have worked in the Ministry of Education before. In the development of a curriculum, you first and foremost ensure that you have a guideline framework, if you like, a curriculum framework. Now, out of the curriculum framework, you now develop your curriculum from it. Okay? All these things were done in 2022 and 2023. No qualms about that. But I'm also suggesting to you that as part of the processes, you now have to develop a textbook and other instructional materials from the curriculum. And those textbooks and instructional materials were developed in 2025. That's what I'm coming to show you, that this is one of the instructional materials that has been signed by the Honorable Haruna Idrisu. In fact, he gave the foreword. The PLC, which is the Professional Learning Community Handbook, was signed by Haruna Idrisu. In fact, in this book, he was referring us to the manual, that is a revised manual, and maybe if I go to...
No, it couldn't have been, because these things happened in the past few days. So this document, I don't want to see the date in which was signed. Because this document may have been signed on the old one that has now been withdrawn.
Hold on, respectfully. The Honorable Haruna Idrisu was a minister, or if you like, was appointed in 2025. I am suggesting to you that in the curriculum, because see, you have to be able to find in the curriculum and the framework issues of gender identity, if you like, defined. Because as I said, it is not a standing document. One will have to give birth to the other.
Right.
The curriculum will have to give birth to the instructional manual.
Yeah.
So there cannot be any definition of gender identity that does not form basis from the curriculum. Now I'm suggesting to you that in 2022 and 2023, per the curriculum and the framework, there is nothing that has been mentioned with respect to gender identity, with respect to sexual rights.
Because that was a time that, you know, the issue came up.
Yes.
And then there was the uproar against it.
No, that was in 2018.
Yes.
That was in 2019.
Yeah, that is when the first time, what do you call this, CST or something?
The CST, Comprehensive Sexuality,
it came up. Yes. And then the president assured that it will never happen under his watch.
Yes.
And then the changes were made.
Yes.
So it didn't happen.
No, see.
The curriculum was developed from that point.
No, 2019, the documents that were, as it were, exposed was just a presentation. It did not find expression in any of our official documents like we are finding now. It was just a presentation that was made to teachers. Which document was leaked which brought about the comprehensive sexuality education discussion. Now, mind you, even the comprehensive sexuality education was first found expression in the Ghanaian discourse in 2012 to 2016. That was when the Ghana Education Service signed an agreement with the United Nations Population Fund, where an amount of 51 million Ghana cedis was given to the country, and out of the 51 million Ghana cedis, 33.9 million was for purposes of comprehensive sexuality education. That was the first time we heard that in 2012-2016, when President Mahama was the president of the Republic of Ghana. In fact, in 2016, he chaired a program and launched a program with Lardy and Mahama at Kempinski about the 7th African Conference where sexual rights was espoused here in Ghana. So I'm saying that yes, those discussions were had before 2012 and 2022 and 2023, but the manuals was never developed in 2024 or 2023. The manuals were developed in 2025. And that is why I'm saying that, see, if
so
you check the communication.
So is it that the development
there is a framework. Let me come in here. There's a framework for the development of a manual.
Yes.
And to develop a manual, there's key stakeholders that need to be brought in.
Yes.
A manual can't be snapped off in 1 year.
Yes.
A manual can be snapped up in 6 months. As part of the framework,
there's a curriculum that cannot be done. After the manual can be done.
No,
a curriculum can take you. Curriculum and textbooks can take you like 2 years.
In terms of there is, if you look at it, there's what is called the National Pre-Tertiary Framework.
Yes.
Right? So this framework started before the NDC regime. So it started. It started before that. I'm coming. Yeah, and it allows for a revision to be done every 5 years. So if you are saying the manual was done in 2000 or 2025, and we are all being quiet about it, nobody knew about it until this came up. A document gets corrected. We are calling it a revised version of what has been corrected. You see, we are mixing the whole thing, but for weaponizing and politicizing it
the NACA
here and there.
So the NACA boss, Professor Bequim, says that this was done in 2024.
Yes, in June,
and the problem with
in
us
June 2020, we can look at the handing over notes of the minister.
The year it was done to look for blame.
When was this
That's the problem with us. Instead of the substance.
Instead of the substance. So if we keep throwing here and there who launches what at Kempinski on sexual rights, it derails the effort of the essence of a national discussion such as education. Now let's premise it on logic, right? A curriculum is developed in June 2024. Look at evidence of that within the handing over notes of the education minister. You said you served there. We agreed that you served between a period. By 2017, you were not there between the period of even 2024 and 2025. Now, you look at this where there exists a framework. Mind you, this development of what they call manual, which is supposed to have been led by the mandated institution known as NACA, was not done by them because they had a supporting role from a consultancy called TTEL, right, chaired by Professor Rufus Anamwa. Right. So TTEL had some funding from MasterCard. I stand to be corrected. We all know when you have funding from agencies, what could be tied. I'm not impugning anything because I'm just raising the relevant issues for bystander Ghanaians.
TTEL is transforming teacher training and learning.
Yes.
And as we understand
invariably,
it was a British government-funded program.
Yes. About $50 million. About $50 million.
A British government-funded program.
Yeah.
But when they actually finished and left, then the Professor Anamwa led, group, then set it up as an sort of an NGO.
Yes.
And then it was funded by the government to be doing this manuals and things.
Yes, and NACAP was not resourced enough to. So, I mean, at the time, if you see, there were some roars from civil society organizations that, look, why are you ceding your mandate off to TTEL or a third-party agency that could be classified as an NGO of a sort or as sort of like a consultancy of a sort? So, you see, and when you look at the implementation or you look at the chronology of events, right, apart from the funding bit and where it came from, as I said, the framework, the National Pre-Tertiary Framework, allows a revision of every 5 years. In the last revision that was done, it's not up to the mandated period as prescribed by this framework for any revision to be done. And if the revision process, if you look at even the stakeholders involved and putting together a team to do it, right, it's a lot of work that moves on to do that. Now, moving on from that, in November 2024, we have what implementation and the start-up. So the first was actually started.
Okay, so hold on.
Yeah.
You are truncating Assefua's presentation.
Yeah.
I had asked him to pause
and
to have you make an input as to the things that still exist, even though our focus has been the gender identity.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a chronological picture. So
what I mean is that it's not your turn.
Okay,
so
all right, okay.
You seem to have truncated his
Okay, sure. Then let me
presentation.
leave that for him to carry on.
So you are saying that this was done in 2015, but the experts 2025. But the experts tell me that all teacher manuals, underline that, all teacher manuals were written in 2024. NACA and GES have no access, they have no control or role in the process. They are only used for the branding for it. And in fact, it was in 2018 that you had the new curriculum writing start by giving the funds that were needed to do it. And this is where we are. So if you see the document, and I had to ask a question because the document is branded NACA Ministry of Education. And the explanation I was giving is that that is the branding. But the institutions doing it, like he's told us, TTEL doing it, they don't hand it to them to play a role in review or anything of the sort. Go ahead with your presentation.
Samson, let me try and also try to, as it were, put it in proper perspective so that my brother Khalid will understand the issues very well. I am saying that one issue leads to the other. In the development of a framework, it cannot be a standalone. You use the national penitentiary framework to be able to develop a curriculum. And these things were done by 2023. Samson, in the development of textbooks, which is supposed to be out of the curriculum, it takes a lot of time. You know why? Because that is the sole prerogative of private, or if you like, the private entities to be able to publish books based on the curriculum. It takes a lot of research, it takes a lot of time before you can bring out those textbooks. Now, in the absence of the textbooks, government may try or may attempt, or if like NACA, may attempt to, as it were, bring in other manuals like the teacher manuals and what have you. Assuming without admitting that these documents were even done during the MPP's era, then hers must indeed rule, because the insertions that we find here are tendencies of LGBTQ tendencies. How come that you found these things in there and went ahead to sign without proofreading them? You printed it actually and sent it to the various schools. That is causing financial loss to the state. But that is not even an argument I'm accepting. The argument that I am advancing on this platform is that the processes will have to lead to one another, and indeed, per the document that I have, this is documentary evidence. It is okay for you to advance that it is branded. But I'm saying that the PLC that was signed by the Honorable Haruna Idrisi, in fact, page 7, was now even referring us to a document in the manual. Which document, or if you like, which page actually says that? That is page 7.
Whilst you look for that, the Ministry of Education had issued a statement and said that the reference to Haruna Idrisu is erroneous because the SHS Year 2 teacher manual, Physical Education and Health, which contains a definition of gender identity, is not reflective of Ghanaian norms and values. It was made in 2024.
Samson, see, I have the document here.
No, but you are saying that this manual arises out of the framework.
Yes, it's extracted from the framework.
You understand? And it's signed by Honorable Haruna Idrisu. But when did he sign it? Because we are now going to deal with a totally different document. Because the document now that we're going to deal with is the one that has been there, had the gender identity extracted.
Yes.
So this manual goes with the old framework, doesn't it?
Yes.
This manual goes with the old framework. So if we withdraw this one,
so that is what I'm suggesting.
If we withdraw this one, we will withdraw the manual also, because the manual then has to
absolutely.
Yes.
No, hold on. It tells you the intent of the people to smuggle in tendencies of LGBTQ in our curriculum.
Okay, so it was smuggled in, and now we have removed it. We have seen it,
Yes.
and then we have removed it.
Yes.
What do you want now?
What I want now is that people will have to answer for this.
Okay,
Heads will have to rule for this.
Who's head in particular?
NACA, of course, NACA CEO. Because
you're saying Haruna signed it.
of course, but you see, I'm saying that. Listen, I'm saying that NACA CEO is the one. NACA CEO is the one who supervised the printing of these books. I do not want to get to the level where I will have to call for the head of Haruna Idrisu because I have been a deputy minister before. It is possible that he may have been misled, or he did not even take the opportunity to even read the document that he was signing.
You have been or he has been.
I said I have been a deputy minister before. So I know how agencies, or if you like heads of agencies, can even mislead ministers. So that's why I am safely trying not to get there. In my press conference, I said that there should be a probe for the Honorable Haruna Idrisu to come to Parliament to come and answer why these tendencies were found in our manuals.
Samson, Vincent,
it is not okay for you to say.
If you are doing this out of public interest, my expectation of you, just not as an activist, but as a member of Parliament, is to call for a policy audit trail, right, of the manual in and of itself. So if you are not calling for a policy audit trail of the manual produced in June 2024, and you are pinning it on a minister just because a minister appended a signature on a PLC in 2025. You're not being fair to the discourse.
That can be done by way of RTI, but it doesn't also stop us from calling for the heads of people who already apologized to us.
What I am saying,
you have sat there as a NACA CEO.
But the principle of ultimate responsibility.
Yeah, it comes with it. But now look at it, Samson. The document you inherited, or NACA inherited, the current NACA. You see, the boss said when it came to his attention, I was looking at the chronology of events when he was giving it. It came to attention. He got to the technical deputy to say, look, this has come to our attention, which is fair for any boss to do who has taken over office, probably in under a year or so. Look, these manuals that produced, or we are talking about Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. We're talking about 300-page on average documents that needs probably to be audited, to be looked at and all. So until implementation stages, you may not be able to spot certain things. As you would see, TTEL piloted this in 33 schools to test the efficacy of it. At the time of piloting, we asked ourselves, what did the document or framework contain? Did it contain all of these things? You see, we can weaponize the issues of LGBT. We can weaponize the issues, politicize them, right, in trying to cherry pick and call for heads to rule. But when it comes to issues of national discussion, in particular of education, let's premise it and ask for the relevant questions in looking at the policy trail of it. And that's all I'm calling for.
Team Fojo says this was coordinated straight from the Jubilee House.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, and that is something that I also said.
You agree with that?
Yes, I agree with you.
And you have proof of it?
And you have proof
but this is bizarre.
This signature by Haruna is not proof of it.
No.
You see the unanimity.
You say that. I mean, where is he getting his evidence from?
This is very
Or is it just a feeling or what?
No, you see, I initially made mention
absolutely agree. So maybe
I made mention of the fact that I made mention of the fact that for us to have this manual with tendencies of LGBTQ means that it should have been derived from the framework and the curriculum. That is the standard practice.
Yes.
That is the standard practice. So if it is not in the curriculum, if it is not in the framework, and it finds expression in the manual and the PLC, it means that it has been smuggled in these manuals, or people actually inserted in it without thinking that people will actually spot it.
And that came from instructions from the president.
Hold on, I'm coming.
Hold on.
We were here in this country when a constitutional review committee was formed. The head appointed by the President of the Republic. Now, in that constitutional review committee report and their recommendations,
not the head, all of them were appointed by
that's
the
okay,
President.
but page 105, which seeks to amend Article 28 of the 1992 Constitution, that Article 28 should be amended to provide for the right of every child to bodily integrity, including freedom from irreversible, non-consensual medical or surgical interventions. So today, if a child is born in this country and you find tendencies of a man and a woman at the same time with that child, this recommendation is saying that you cannot perform any surgical procedure on that person. Let the person grow. When he grows, then he will now decide what he wants to do. And I am suggesting to you that when you put the bits and pieces together with respect to who introduced comprehensive sexuality education in 2012 and 2016, and how President Mahama himself launched a program, the 7th African Conference Program at Kempinski, I can have that rebuttable presumption and the conclusion that the NDC, led by John Dramani Mahama, is actually interested in introducing the tendencies of LGBTQ in our curriculum.
So
and
you
that
are
is
saying,
a conclusion that I can have.
You are saying that the Constitution Review Committee,
yes,
granted the interpretation you put to what the amendment they have proposed.
Yes.
Granted, that interpretation is what was in their mind when you put it there. You're saying that the president or the presidency instructed Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, Justice Sophia Dinyira, Charlotte said, Dr. A.C. Ansan, Professor Kwame Karkari, Alhaji Ibrahim Tanko, Godwin Jokoto. He instructed them, the presidency instructed them that this is LGBT and we want you to put it in the Constitution. That's what you're saying.
That it is a clear involvement of the Jubilee House in this kind of issue.
The Constitution Review Committee.
Yes. Why? Who appointed them?
Is the presidency.
Why? Who appointed them?
Oh.
If the president appointed them,
of course they share ideologies together. So I can safely say, well, that is my opinion.
They didn't talk.
Don't have an opinion.
No, we want the logic of it.
But I'm saying that I am just linking that to President Mahama's own launching of the 7th African Conference Program, where he advocated for sexual rights in 2016.
He advocated for LGBT rights.
Of course, yes. That's I have the
no. Answer my question.
You say when you say sexual rights,
sexual rights is not LGBT rights.
No, relax. The sexual right that he advocated for, one way or the other, has been defined in his own document. With sexual right show the tendencies of LGBT.
I want to make a comment.
Appointed by President. Let's hear Vicky now.
Let's hear President Mohammed's document. Of course, President Mohammed's document.
In relation to this particular change that Vincent was talking about, I remember we were in this very studio, Samson, with the members, the head, Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh and Charlotte, and this question came up on the sexual
from the MP for Mensah.
Yes. And they explained, and I think Oliver was here as well.
Right.
And Oliver's people were the ones who pushed for that. So it has nothing to do with the president. And what they said is that, medically, there are people who are born with both genders.
Yeah.
And that is that's a fact. There are people, it's rare, but it does happen. And that the parents take it upon themselves to decide at birth what they want. So if you want a girl and the child has both sexual parts, you decide, okay, cut off all the male parts, and I want my girl, and that's it. And that actually, when the child then develops, and it turns out that the child actually has more male chromosomes or tendencies or whatever, then it damages the child psychologically.
Yeah.
So this was a purely medical insertion. So I don't understand the logical thread between that and Jubilee House.
Yeah.
You think
it's a medical thing.
It makes sense.
And it makes sense because look, there's a lot of counseling. I didn't interject, Vincent, when you were speaking. There's a lot of counseling that goes on. Here we don't have the resources to deal with these things. So it's nipped in the bud, it's done. Yeah. Okay, you have a girl, you have a boy, or I want a girl, I cut off this, cut off that. And the damage that can be caused to that child is immeasurable. You have no idea. So this is not something we should be politicizing at all. This is a serious issue that we're talking about. In the West, when that happens, it takes years of serious counseling and all sorts of things, interventions to work with the child to a certain point before all sorts of psychological evaluations are done before medically they decide to remove the other sex, purely on a medical basis after several steps have been taken. So please, we can do the politics but not with certain things. And the people who propose this have explained why it is. And indeed, when you do your research, you will see
Samson.
that these things happen medically.
Okay.
So let's respect that.
Right.
Yeah, Samson,
you see, wait, somehow, if we are not careful, we'll abandon the substance.
Yes.
But we'll come to it.
Yes.
The Ministry of Education statement says this. The Ministry of Education clarifies publication attributed to Honorable Haruna Idrisu. 1. The Ministry of Education has taken note of a publication by the Center for Democratic Movement alleging that the Honorable Minister for Education, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, authorized the Physical Education and Health Elective Teacher Manual for SHS Year 2 in 2024, which contains a definition of gender identity that is not reflective of Ghanaian norms and values. 2. The ministry states unequivocally that this allegation is false and entirely without basis. 3. In 2021, the Ministry of Education entered a memorandum of understanding with the Transforming Teaching, Education and Learning, TTEL, to provide technical advisory services, project management, research and implementation support aimed at strengthening teaching and learning outcomes nationwide. 4. The curriculum development process began in 2021, led by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NACA, with support from Transforming Teaching, Education and Learning, TTEL. A rigorous process was used to identify and select over 300 Ghanaian professionals from secondary schools, colleges of education, industry and universities to write the curriculum and accompanying resources, i.e. teacher manuals, learner materials, and PLC handbooks. The curriculum development process involved extensive stakeholder engagement before and during the writing and the trial phases. 5. The development and production of this manual predates the appointment of Haruna Idrisu as Minister for Education. He therefore had no oversight of the said material produced. 6. Furthermore, the only official document produced under the direct leadership of Haruna Idrisu since assuming office is the Professional Learning Communities, PLC handbooks, which provides a structured platform for teachers to meet regularly to share best practices and improve subject-specific teaching and learning outcomes. The PLC handbook contains no ambiguity regarding the definition of gender. Finally, the ministry remains steadfast in its commitment to transparency, accountability, and strict adherence to national educational policies and values. We urge the public and media organizations to verify information thoroughly before publication to prevent misinformation and unnecessary public concern. This is signed by Hashmin Mohammed, Press Secretary to the Minister for Education. Now let's hear you.
My point here. My point here is this. If we can actually sit in studio, right, and go after the bipartisan Constitutional Review Committee led by H. Prempe to say that the voices, because they didn't sit in the Jubilee House to draft their recommendation, they crisscrossed the length and breadth of this
some
country.
actually say because he, the chair, was a lawyer, was not a lawyer called to the bar in Ghana. The process is bogus. We should throw it away.
I mean, people have led Constitutional Review Committee in mature 200-year-old democracies that were never lawyers. So that is neither here nor there. We all have this fixation on where you are called to the bar or where you've come from or what happens to. Whereas the standards out there, even that's the view of the former GBA president. No, I mean, there are interesting views. There are even views of whether you are an associate professor in the UK, you can be called a professor in Ghana. Or I get all those attacks. So I understand where these mundane things are coming from. Yes. So, for example, when you look at this, did he sit in the Jubilee House to draft this? There was an effort and a process. Crisscross the length and breadth of this country. Engage stakeholders in every hamlet and cottage in this country. And we sit here to poo-poo on that in the name of partisan politics, to say that because President Mahama appointed him, This is what it is. Do we not have an education on what constitutional reviews do? This is a recommendation. Nobody has enshrined this in law. And an inference of that to issues of LGBT is that because this is what has President appointed someone as chair, we should link that to an educational curriculum that was developed before a government took place.
That is if the interpretation is correct.
But the interpretation is wrong.
It's wrong. That's where I'm still going to come to that. When you get it, I'll see that to you. Even the interpretation given to that is your own interpretation. And you want to lord it on over all of us. We are stupid. We don't understand that the interpretation to this is that. That is unfair. To just not us in studio, but to listeners as well. Can we always labor on every point as partisan, as Mahama, as NDC? We don't go only to Parliament to represent MPP or NDC. We represent the good people of Ghana.
Do you remember when the campaign started about the comprehensive sexuality education issue? Yes. Do you remember what the NDC was doing to Akufo-Addo?
I know, but I'm not going to. You see, that's another
so it's
thing.
Not different.
No, but yeah, that's why we call for a reset agenda, and we're on the reset course.
Oh my God!
Right? Look, you see, Samson. When we come to issues of, I'll give you some level of that. I'm giving contextualization. I'm not defending anything. For us to really have an idea of how sensitive these issues are, even in very developed countries, right? If anyone had listened to, I think, the Reef lecture given by Lord Samson, there was issues about, a child that was birthed and couldn't have treatment that supported the NHS in England and ought to be taken to the US. And the court was blocking that, which has similar connotations to what Madam Bright is talking about here. Even in issues of euthanasia, among other issues, right? So they are very complex issues that do come and go. You realize how evolving society and sensitive is. As Madam Bright may, correct me if I'm wrong, until after 1990, right? Women barristers were not allowed to wear straight trousers in the courts in England and Wales. That is 1990, not 1960. Right? So that could be deemed as primitive even back then. But look at the period, 1990. Right? Alan Turing was chemically castrated for being gay in England by law.
That was a serious.
And Alan Turing today has his portrait on the biggest bill, which is the £50 note in England. So this is not to justify anything. This is just to give you how society is complex in its evolution among other issues. And therefore a politicization of these things and not actually breaking them down. And having the respect of our culture.
Let's stick with the substance.
Yes, and respect of our culture.
When he started,
it's going to go a very long.
When Asifwa started, he drew our attention to something that is still there.
Yes, if it is there, no. The point is, look, we can't just. It's a serious document, right? It's a serious document. And what worries me when he started, what was very alarming, was that to keep referring to social media posts. What has been posted and what has been deleted may not be fair.
I have not.
Right, because it's a serious engagement.
I have not.
If the document has an issue, can we call for a revision of it? Right? So that it is looked at comprehensively. Not bits and pieces of what is deleted and what's not deleted.
Okay.
Look at the response of the good old professor Aden Anaka, how he's going about the process. But if you throw in a partisan spinal in the wheel,
Susan, do you find it? Don't you find it curious?
1995.
Don't you find it curious that this matter comes up, and then almost the entire Ghanaian populace stand against it? That it should not find expression in our curriculum. So Akufo-Addo had to come and say it will never happen under my watch. Then how many years down the line? We find that whilst it didn't find expression in the curriculum, it found expression in the teacher manual. Is this a slip? Felix Ofosu-Kwakye says this is a slip. Or is it a deliberate slip?
Well, I mean, for my mind, there should have been a lot of gatekeepers or a lot of, what you call it, checks and balances so that things like that don't slip and come in. And if that is the thing, there I agree that certain people must be held responsible for allowing that to continue to that point. And then we need to look at our system, that these are important documents that are coming to shape lives, that are coming for our future. And so we should not allow things to slip. I mean, education is important. We've realized that if education, you have people well educated, it affects their health. If you have people well educated, it affects the economy. If you have people well educated, it affects their social well-being, their physical well-being, just their well-being. You understand? So we shouldn't allow certain things to slip by us. There should be the safeguards that are put there so that any document that comes out that is going to the core of who we are in terms of, then it has to undergo rigorous checks and balances. But you see, the thing is, there'll always be this struggle between our African ethic of, and that of what we perceive as Western imperialism trying to force us into a certain culture that we kick against. And that's why many Ghanaians kick against us, kick against it, because as Africans and as Ghanaians, we don't see sex, we don't see gender or even sex. We don't see it as just the individual. We are communitarian, and we see that a person's sexuality has to do with the community, and not that I'm an adult, you're an adult, and so we are having consensual sex. And so we rebel against it, because for us, sex is part of the community in terms of procreation, continuation of our lineage, continuation of us. What they call it? Telos. The end point of sex is not just sex for pleasure, but it's for continuity, and that is the procreation and continuity of who we are as a people. And that's why you'd have people wanting you get married, the next minute they're asking you whether you're having children, whereas in maybe abroad it is a personal choice whether to have children. Children are an accessory, you can decide you want or not. For us, children are not an accessory, you can decide or not. You need to continue. So Ghanaians will rebel, or Africans will rebel against anything that seems like, if we had it, it truncates procreation, a male and a male. Right. You understand? And so we would have that kind of conflict.
Let's come to answer
all
the question: what should happen? What must happen beyond the removal of this portion? And now that we are knowing that, we're learning that there are even other portions that, mimic this very one, and something may have to be done about it. I need to take a break, but I've just been informed that I thought Bobby Bansing had left us after the legal issue, but he's still there. Bobby, give us a quick comment before you take leave of us. As Asifwa said, we had millions from elsewhere to develop the curriculum and things. Do you think that those who give these millions, who have interest in this kind of sexuality or sexual orientation, will sit back and it may have been 300 teachers and experts from wherever who may have been brought together to do this, but could they have ensured this slip?
Ensured this slip. I think that essentially, for me, my takeaway from all these discussions is that as a country, there seems to be a decision that we are not ready yet for this kind of education. And whoever attempts to slip in through the front door, through the back door, would get the kind of feedback that we are getting. Now, whether or not it is something that we must open ourselves up to be influenced by donor agencies is another question. Because if they are ready to give us that money to ensure these kind of slips, can those monies be put to other uses that will be more beneficial? As a country, is it our priority to put these kind of educational material out, or rather invest in, for example, infrastructure, health, education, as it were? I think that we've heard all those that are able to take political decisions. I have not heard one person from the time of President Atta Mills, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, saying that the country would encourage this kind of education. So if that is the discussion from the top, it only goes to say that those that are down, the public service, the sectors, the educationists, those that are responsible for ensuring that our kids and our brothers and our sisters in school get the kind of education that aligns with the values that at this stage we say we are aligned to, must walk the talk. And if these donors or donations are tied to this kind of education that we are not ready for, then we must be ready to take a stand and let it know. Even though I believe that if that is what the country is saying that we are not ready for, we should be able to do that. I also agree that those that are responsible or were responsible for putting these in our textbooks, if they've admitted that it was not true, I believe that there should be a holistic analysis of how it got there in the first place, particularly with the background of the previous editions of these materials, which had contained some of these or suggested some of these contents that we say are not aligned with our values, and then it still found its way there, so that it is not as if it is just water under the bridge. Perhaps, Samson, it may not be influenced by any donors. It may be somebody's or a group of persons who want to put it out there. Well, let's investigate, let's find out, let's see what the sources, who are responsible, and the kind of appropriate measures we can take to ensure that these things do not happen anymore.
All right, thank you very much. Boy Banton takes leave of us here. We take a break, and when we return, we'll be asking the question that must be asked. The Catholic Bishops' Conference, for example, say there must be a comprehensive audit, and to see why the editorial processes also leave room for where we find ourselves now. We'll be right back. How time flies, and okay, guys, we are on, we are live. Okay, and usually my outfits will be done by Habil's Couture. You can call them 0200 84 1988. Today I'm in this because my very good friend Professor Kofi Abochi's wife is being laid to rest today. That's why I'm in black. Okay, so the show is brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons, Subscale Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial star 165 hash on MTN to join. Today, My Way Today, Syntax Tank is strong. It's tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients are pushing. International Facilities Management Association. They are proud to be associated with Newsfile. Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. Gold Board Jewelry, pure, precious, proudly Ghanaian. Koa Natural Juice, it's 100% pure fruit juice. Okay, barely like a minute for each one of you. So what's the way forward? And I'm looking at how should we redefine the portions that you have flagged practically so that we don't belabor the point?
Well, Samson, I think that the minority called for a nationally acceptable, defined words that will be minus anything tendencies of LGBTQ. So there should be a stakeholder engagement where teachers, parents, educators, experts in education, the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, the Methodist Conference.
A group of 300 people produce this. So why should we still have a problem?
But you see, I think that there should be a nationally acceptable definition where you don't find any tendencies of LGBTQ. That is what I would say about it. But to respond to the press statement from the Ministry of Education, when the Ministry of Education says that in the PLC, there's nothing that suggests that there are tendencies of LGBTQ in, I disagree.
You had already raised that at the beginning. Thank you.
No, I haven't. I mean, when you go to page 7 of it, page 7 of it actually refers you to what is in the manual, which has that tendencies of LGBTQ.
Okay, I get the point.
And two, I also want to state that, you're a lawyer. In court, when there's a crime, there are times that you have to resort to circumstantial evidences. There are times that you have to put bits and pieces of evidences together to arrive at a decision.
And except so, that the problem with circumstantial evidence is that it must lead to only one
reasonable conclusion. Yes.
So in this case, it can't lead to one conclusion. That is the presidency or somewhere.
Is this even illegal? No. Please see. When in the last session of Parliament, the NDC actually went through 33 bills under a certificate of agency. What is the president and the NDC's commitment in passing an LGBTQ, where the 33 bills, that is the ones that have been passed under a certificate of agency, is minus the LGBTQ.
Legitimate consent.
Especially when...
I'm sorry, we are eating into their time.
Okay, so I think we should have a comprehensive audit. I think it's important from what Vincent has been saying there, we haven't kind of seen everything that needs to be removed. So we just need to go through it and remove what doesn't need to be there to reflect our own cultural, biological, and moral understanding of what gender and sexuality are.
Right. Yes.
Well, I mean, President Akufo-Addo had all the time to accent to the bill, which he didn't do. Right, so I don't know why you are raising it now, saying that this is what it is. But that said,
they will tell you that it became a matter for the courts.
For the courts, well, whichever. But again, if
I want to go by,
said that when they have
if I want to go by his circumstantial evidence, I could have said that someone also went to court on their behalf, but I wouldn't say that. Right. So
you have said
you should have been alone. Right. So, but moving on from this, I think this is a very national issue. It's very sensitive. Our culture is important. You see, that's why I call it a bipartisan. I'm calling it a bipartisan position to this. We are not ready for this. Maybe the definition of sex and gender culturally may have some connotations that are not right, which is why a proper stakeholder review. And trusting my elder brother, the Honorable Haruna Idris, so I trust and I know what he can do. And I know his personal stance on these issues, right, based on our culture. I know President Mahama and the Vice President stands on these issues based on our culture. None of them are ready to betray our culture, and I'm sure the right thing will be done. So let's call on all stakeholders and see how. But the willy-nilly of pulling things out and saying this has been done, going back and forth, it's not what. This is the future of our kids. This is the future of the nation. So let's all hold hands and see how we can credibly amend whatever wrong and give the right interpretation. Sometimes it's language. And language can be very chaotic when it's subjected to interpretation. Okay. The promoters of the anti-LGBT bill met with the intersex community and removed intersex from the bill. Check the final bill. It does not have intersex as one of the banned issues. The MP in your studio is misinforming Ghanaians if he seeks to link the CRC recommendations to LGBT plus issues. There is ignorance about intersex, which sadly this MP is also promoting without even reference to why intersex was removed from the bill. Yes.
Okay, I mean, I think we've talked about that, saying that what the CRC have said makes medical sense. So, you know, anybody would, some medical background will also say, but no, but this makes medical sense for this to happen. So that is okay. But the Catholic Churches, the Bishops' Conference are being true to themselves. I mean, for them as Catholics, I mean, the Church does not accept the idea that gender is independent of biological sex. You understand? And they feel that you cannot separate the two. For us to move forward, we should definitely have an audit. We should definitely put a system into place that anything that is going down in terms of curriculum, we have the gatekeepers who are looking at some of these things so that these things don't slip by. But we also have to keep in mind that our children are exposed to things where, I mean, when I was 4, it was ABC and the thing. Now the 4-year-old is exposed to certain things.
TV.
So we should embed them in our culture. Yes, our culture is not drumming and dancing. We should not reduce our culture to drumming and dancing. But we should also make them aware that there are certain things out there in the world that we disagree with because of who we are as a people. So we should not just create a vacuum and or remove things. Yes, we should replace it with things that are culturally appropriate, but we must also make them aware that there are certain things out there. If we give our children a firm grounding in who we are as a people, what are our values, that African ethics is communitarian, that we don't believe that rights are absolute. If you look in our constitution, it says you have rights, but only according to the society.
We must find these things ourselves.
Yes. We must do these things.
Thank you very much.
It is only when we do these things,
ladies and gentlemen,
that we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just give a couple of our viewers the opportunity of their text messages. And Papa Bisu in Sprinters says that when at all will folks in the MPP stop peddling falsehood, they should take note. Winning back majority of Ghanaians to believe in them. That culture of lies in their DNA. And also, what are you talking about? They took to the streets and media. Ken Ofori-Attah is very sick and recuperating, but ICE in USA says the man is medically fit. Well, that's their cup of tea. Okay, thank you for your message. Fred Samson says that this issue about gender or sex is worrying and a grave concern. So if this had not become public, it would be in the books and our young children will be taught this. Fortunately, last week, even before this came out, I told my kids that a person's sex is determined at birth and it's biological, not determined by feelings or any such. Long ago, the case of Corbett versus Corbett held that a person's sex is determined at birth. So what changed? We must be serious as a country and stop this. Parents have more work to do in educating our children than our parents before. Tanko says that, if I remember correctly, the ambassador said that when he had the information, he checked from the Attorney General who confirmed it. If that is anything to go by, then it means that the Attorney General already was aware of the arrest of Sedina, and that should tell us something. Master Planner Junior Policy Analyst Kentampo says that great education from all your panel members on this issue of the LGBTQ issue. Kudos to all of them, especially Lawyer Vincent Eko Asefwa. Thank you for that. Kofi Bento says we are splitting hairs about language we claim promotes LGBT tendencies. Our children and grandchildren will wonder why we stress so much. Maybe we should appreciate that these issues won't be issues in future and moderate our focus and stress over these issues. Prince Henry in Ofori-Attah says that you steal from the state and you want to be treated as a king. Who does that? The current president of Ghana, John Mahama, was investigated and discharged over what? Nebulous Airbus allegations. The MPP should know that the more Ken run from investigations and interrogation, the party will continue to be seen as corrupt and bad in the eyes of Ghana. If I was not able to read your messages, please forgive me. Thank you very much. This has been Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. My guests have been, earlier you heard Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, former Deputy Attorney General. Bobby Banson is lawyer and lecturer, Ghana School of Law at the Makola campus. Susan Edua-Mankwa is Executive Secretary, the National Interest Movement, NIM. Victoria Bright is International Corporate Lawyer and Entrepreneur. Sharif Mahmoud Khalid is Associate Professor of Accounting and Finance and Economic Advisor to the Vice President of Ghana. Vincent Eko Asefwa is lawyer. He's MP Old Tafo and one of the sponsors of the LGBTQ plus bill, anti-LGBTQ plus bill by way of private members bill. I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for your company.